Get ready to start. Okay, welcome to the Regional Council meeting of Thursday, September 26. Roll call. All members are present, and I want to make note that Councillor Carlson's here and looking in very fine form. George, good to see you back after a very, very short absence. Good to see you. Absent is Mayor Crombie. Councillor Fortini is here now, and that is it. Declarations of conflict of interest. Seeing none. Approval of the minutes, September 12, 2019. I have it moved by Councillor Starr, seconded by Councillor Sinclair. All those in favour? That is carried. Public announcement sponsored by a member of Council. Councillor Sato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to, at the beginning of the meeting, very quickly congratulate staff on the opening of the Streetsville Paramedic Reporting Center. We had the opening on Tuesday, and first of all, the staff that organized it did an absolutely outstanding job. But I want to thank the staff who worked with Councillor Carlson and myself. It's in his ward, on the border, and it was a really wonderful project. And I know we're both very excited to have that service in our community, serving the west side of Mississauga. So I just want to congratulate them on that.
Thank you. With that, I come to the approval of the agenda. It's been moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Carlson, and I'll ask you to listen intently that I have one addition, and that is that the agenda for the September 26, 2019 Regional Council meeting include a motion regarding the waiving of the fees at PAMA to be dealt with under Notice of Motion 22, and further that the agenda for the September 26, 2019 Regional Council meeting be approved as amended. All those in favour? That is carried. That brings us to the consent agenda. So I move down from delegations to staff presentations. At the suggestion of the clerk and with my blessing, given that item 8.3 under staff presentations, notwithstanding that it's an important issue in and of itself, but Peter Dundas is here to deal with it, and he otherwise should have been in Windsor today on other business. So if we could deal with that first under staff presentations, and then it logically would flow that 8.2 be next, then I want to go to 8.1. So if we could allow for that. With that, and I believe all of those have to be held, of course, their presentations. That brings me first then to items related to human services under consent 9.1. On consent, I know we have an in-camera on the broader subject, but Madam Clerk, this one doesn't necessarily have to be held, so that's dealt with on consent. 10.1. Hold. Item 11.1. Hold. 12.1. Item 13.1, our calendar, and the chair would like that held if someone would extend that courtesy to me and move that. Councillor Rass, thank you. 13.2. 13.3. 15.1. 15.2, also on consent. 17.1. Hold. 17.2 is to be held for part of the deputations. The communications items 18.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all on the same matter, and 18.6, all on consent. 18.7 on consent, and that would bring us to other business and notices of motion, so that deals with that, Madam Clerk. Okay, I need a recorded vote on our consent agenda as moved by Councillors Mahoney and McFadden. Please vote accordingly electronically. And my apologies, as you're voting, the clerk advises me that 13.4 I may have gone over. Is it the wish to move the borrowing item, 13.4? I would trust that's on consent as well. Very good. So we include that in the main motion, and you are voting accordingly, Madam Clerk? Yeah. And that carries. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to delegations. And what a great moment in the history of the region of Peel. You may be aware that your Police Services Board just spent a great deal of time going to the marketplace and looking for a new chief, and that search has been very, very successful. I'm going to take this opportunity to publicly thank my board, but I do want it known to the good people of Brampton and Caledon the exemplary effort that their two mayors put in on this file. We had 4 days of meetings that lasted a full day. They were in attendance for all of them, did so much background work, did so much homework, and it was of great significance to the two mayors that we picked the right person. And I know how busy their schedules are otherwise, so I want this council to know and their constituents to know, real thumbs up to them and my entire board for the effort that they put in on this process.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Alan?
point of clarification. Wasn't the Mayor of Caledon, I think it was the Mayor of Mississauga. and the
Oh, I
Mayor of
said
Brampton.
I meant Mississauga and Brampton. My apologies if I misspoke. The Mayor of Mississauga and Brampton, oh, sit on the board. My apologies.
I think my council's all looking at me. What?
Oh, sorry. My apologies. No, clear. Mayor Brown and Mayor Crombie, for all their efforts that sit on the board. Thank you for that correction in my slip up. Okay, and so with that, I thought it would be appropriate to formally introduce our new chief designate who will be sworn in on the 1st of October, because of course it all flows through regional council. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to introduce Nishan Durappa. And instead of me introducing him formally and telling you about him, I wanted him to come and give him a gracious welcome and maybe tell you a little bit about himself. And he goes by the name Nish, I'm told, and Nish, welcome, and I'm glad you can address our council this morning.
Thank you, Chair. I think you actually said my last name better than my children can say. And for that matter, I just want to thank you all for this opportunity to come and introduce myself and say hello to you. I've had the pleasure, Chair Inika and Mayor Thompson, Mayor Crombie, and Mayor Brown, of meeting a lot of you already, but not all of you just yet, and I look forward to that. I think the first thing I want to do is just acknowledge that I do have my family with me, and my wife, Beth, and if you want to wave, or don't worry, her school knows that she's not there right now. And my 3 children, Allie, Luke, and Kate, and my mom, Irene. And so I just think it's important, I think, for you to understand a little bit about me as we embark on this relationship. And I want to hover on the fact that it is about relationships. And that's why you're seeing my family here today, too, because my commitment to you is that you have openness and accountability and a relationship with me that is intended on enhancing community safety for all 3 municipalities for this wonderful region. But first of all, it's my great honor to serve as the chief of 3,000 members. We've got some of our team here, and of course the approaching 1.5 million population. But a little bit about me first is that I was born in Sri Lanka, and I immigrated to Canada at an early age. And my mom got a job here in the region in Peel, within a short time of landing here, and she retired working for the province here in Peel region. My wife's a teacher and educator in this region, and I grew up not in a traditional environment where policing was one that would draw a new immigrant of South Asians, particularly with many cultures, didn't see policing that way. But I was thankful to enter that after finishing education, and now it's 25 years that I'm into policing. And after 25 years, I am proud to say that there are so many opportunities to change the sector of policing, and there are many things to do to enhance community safety, and the traditional ways of doing that don't always mean that's the way to continue doing things. We've got a great organization with Peel Regional Police with many best practices and best-in-class practices, but we all know that the issues that our communities are facing are really a confluence of different pressures, whether they be, gun violence or gang violence, addictions, mental health, older adult isolation, and they aren't one for one agency to deal with together. So one of the things that I've assured the Police Services Board is that I continue to endeavor to support multi-sector collaboratives, and that for the region should be a good thing, because you need to know that I will have a great relationship with staff. That has been a key to success in other activities that I have done to date. And it is also something that I'm looking forward to leading this new team to accomplish here in this region. There are many challenges, no doubt, but innovation, looking for opportunities for collaboration is one of the hallmarks to who I am, and I intend on, saturating this organization with those tenets. And not only that, but responding to the remarkable diversity of needs that all our different communities have. These are all opportunities for us to move forward in the future, to create a legacy, and to make sure that this region continues to have a reputation that is known across this country to be excellence in policing, but to have a vision for a good community to have life in here is one of my priorities. So, Chair, thank you so much for the opportunity to introduce myself. I'll look forward to the one-on-ones, and you will be seeing a lot of me in this time. I'm just warning my wife now that I'll be out, but she knows that. So anyways, with that, thank you again for this opportunity to introduce myself, and look forward to working with all of you.
Nish, thank you. And if you'll stand in place for a moment, there may be some comments. Mayor Crombie, and I apologize, Mayor, I was just extolling your virtues and Patrick Brown, Mayor Brown's, at the tremendous efforts that you put in on this file and making sure that we got the right person, and how appropriate that Mayor Crombie, you're first up to speak. Mayor Crombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, I was going to say the same thing, Chief. Not quite Chief, Deputy. It's Chief Sue. Next week, I believe you're swearing in on October 1st. And everyone's invited if you want to come. It was a very exciting time. We did do an extensive search, and you were the leading candidate. And I want to congratulate you personally and just tell you how much I look forward to working with you, and particularly all the strengths and expertise that you bring. I can't tell you how long I've been saying we need to modernize policing by using innovation and technology. And you came in your presentation telling us exactly that that's what we were going to do and how we were going to do it, and you're going to bring some of the techniques that you use back in Halton and help us modernize our force here in Peel, and we are so excited. And congratulations, and I speak on behalf of everyone in Mississauga that we're very proud of you and very excited to be working with you in the future. We do have some challenges. You saw some incidents last week. There has been a little spike in violent crime and in gang and gun-related crime. So we have a job to do, a big job to do ahead of us. Unfortunately, an innocent life was taken from us last week. Councillor Parrish and I attended Jonathan Davis's funeral, and we have a lot of work to do on the guns and gangs file, and I think you've heard that the federal government is now about to ban, well, if they be re-elected, banning AK-40s and semi-automatic weapons. They're giving municipalities the option on whether they would ban handguns. I certainly support that, but the priority is getting the illegal guns off the streets and working to eliminate gang activity in our communities, and you'll have a big challenge ahead of you. I know this is these gangs are active right across the GTA. We are no exception, but we have to work very hard to eliminate their activity in our communities. So I want to say congratulations, but we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we look forward to doing that with you.
Absolutely, likewise. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. Councillor Parrish.
Well, I'd just like you to know that you're inheriting a wonderful police force. I was at an event yesterday in Malton that the police, under the direction of Holly Faulkner, did outreach to a really difficult community along Goreway Townhouse event, and they came in with pizzas and did the whole thing. And as I was talking to some of the officers, they're pretty excited that you're coming. So not only do you have a great force, you have a force that's pretty keen on meeting you and getting to know you. So welcome to Peel. I'm also going to be your worst nightmare because I am a very persistent type, and I am the councillor from Malton, where unfortunately we had the gun violence. And through various surreptitious means, I found out we were supposed to have a police division built there in the mid-90s because it's very isolated. It's got the airport with trafficking of girls, and it's got a casino going in across the highway very shortly. So I'm going to bug the hell out of you until we get ourselves a division up there. So I will be in to see you frequently.
Okay, well, I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
I actually can be charming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, Carolyn, I was going to say, and just why would you make his life different than anyone else's? But that's okay. Well said. Mayor Thompson.
You have no idea what you just said. First of all, on behalf of Caledon, welcome. Congratulations on your appointment. Looking forward to working with you. As you know, you've done your homework that Peel Region was in Caledon till '82, and because of the rapid growth, the Peel Region moved down to deal with the urban policing and brought the OPP under Section 10 for Caledon. We've always had a good relationship with the regional chiefs through the OPP. We have a new inspector in place now. I encourage you to come to Caledon, and I encourage you to meet with our new inspector to start off with a good relationship, because we've had a fantastic relationship supporting one another over the years, and looking forward to that relationship continuing on.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know there are many opportunities. I look forward to enhancing them for sure. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
Thank you, Chair Nika, and to incoming Chief Nish, congratulations. I know there's a lot of excitement with this task that you're undertaking to ensure public safety in Peel Region. I was at an event recently where the Chief of Halton came up to me and said, I want to arrest both you and Mayor Crombie because you stole our best guy. And it showed the love there was for you in Halton. What was interesting is it was the frontline police officers, but it was also some of the vulnerable communities who were just singing your praises left, right, and center. And so I think you come into this task with high expectations. Particularly you look at some of the work that you did in bringing the community together, not criminalizing mental health challenges, having the right resources, attack the right challenges. We certainly need that fresh perspective here. And as Mayor Crombie mentioned, there's been a lot of concern recently about public safety challenges, whether it was the 410 shooting we had in Brampton that was gang-related. Once again, 60% of our shootings are gang-related, so having an ability to combat that is so important. We had a jewelry store in broad daylight where a car backed into again, and so we can't wait for you to start. And I think I speak for everyone on Brampton Council that we take this very seriously, and really look forward to the energy you're going to bring to this task.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair. Nish, I didn't have a chance to meet you yet, but under the heading of Small World, my executive assistant, Anita Solomon, said, oh, I know this guy. My mother knew him when he was 4 years old back in Sri Lanka, and he was always climbing over our fence. So I started laughing. I said, maybe you got an
I was
early...
just getting my ball back, that's all.
That's right.
You got an early start in police work, so that's got to be the biggest example of a small world I've ever had. I said, oh my goodness, I can't wait to meet him so I can tell him that people have their eye on you halfway around the world. So anyway, you got a big job, and I'm sure you're up to it, and I look forward to working with you on behalf of my residents and everybody in the district. Welcome you to town, and have a great career, and especially nice to see your family with you too. Very, very proud of them, I can see. Thanks.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Mayor Crombie.
Oh, just because I forgot to mention it earlier, you really are a breath of fresh air, if I may say, Nish. And tomorrow at Police Board, I will be moving a motion that we review the police stations that are in place now. As Councillor Parrish referenced, we had always intended to have a station in Malton, and we want to revisit that. So that motion will be on the agenda tomorrow. And I just wanted to say that because I wanted to let my colleagues know as well that there's a motion in place to review that. It's an isolated area. It's a high needs area. As Councillor Parrish will tell you, there's a gambling occurring just down the road. There's human trafficking at the airport. Yet the response time was a little longer because it's further away from 21 Division, 11-12 Division, and we need the response time to be a little faster, and we need a station in that community. So that's something we want to put to the top of your agenda for that review to happen as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I just want to say congratulations. Obviously you were the best person for the job, and we congratulate you sincerely. But just speaking from the perspective of so many of our youth, is we have such a large South Asian population. This means a lot that our kids can know that one day they can be the police chief of one of the largest municipalities in all of Canada. So it truly is something special. And as we did have a conversation a couple weeks back, I look forward to showing you around wards 9 and 10 very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks. Looking forward to it too. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nish, I would add, and I'm not allowed to share certain confidences, but I will tell you this. There really are two reasons why at the end of the day we ended up with this fine gentleman. The first is fate. that when his lovely mother and her husband settled into this community, they settled next door in Halton, and his mother ended up working next door to City Hall in Mississauga at Robert Speck for 30 years with the provincial government until she retired. And then his lovely wife works in teaching in and around this community as well, which meant this gentleman's lived his whole life next door to us in Halton. If not but for that fact, he would not be here, because in a country where 6 or 7 forces were looking for a new chief, every single one of them coveted this gentleman. The second reason why is, and I think I can say this publicly, if not but for the efforts of Mayor Brown and Mayor Crombie, who thought this was the right person and we can't let them get away, it was, and agreed to by all, I should add. And I think you've served us well in that regard. So welcome, Nish. You have big shoes to fill, but timing is everything, and we think you're the right person for the job. We look forward to your former swearing in on the 1st of October. And by the way, if symbolism means anything to you, how ironic is that going to be that the son of Italian immigrants will be welcoming the son of Tamils as regional chair and chair of the board and a new police chief? And that's why we live in the greatest country in the world as well, I might add. Nish, congratulations to you and your family, and welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, we're item 7.2, Lisa Chen, Canadian Conservation Corp. After the delegations, we will then go to Richard Dundas. Thank you, Mayor. Moving on with delegations. First, item 7.2, Lisa Chen, Canadian Conservation Corps participant, Canadian Wildlife Federation, with regard to cigarette butt litter. Lisa, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Before I start, I would like you all to close your eyes for 10 seconds and think of the last walk you took going to work, walking your dogs, or simply enjoying your times with your friends and family. Do you remember seeing any cigarette butts litter along your walk? My name is Lisa Chen, and for the past 3 months, I've been running the Less Top Butts campaign as my Stage 3 community conservation outreach project for the Canadian Conservation Corps. Every year, 4.95 trillion filtered cigarettes are consumed and disposed of somewhere in the environment worldwide. These cigarette butts are in fact made out of a type of non-biodegradable plastic called cellulose acetate that can take up to 25 years to decompose by breaking down into micro and nanoplastics. Cigarette butts are in fact toxic waste, as they contain up to 60 known carcinogens and can leach chemicals such as lead, cadmium, and arsenic within an hour of contact with water. A study by Slaughter et al. In 2011 showed that as little as 1 smoked cigarette butt per liter of water can have a 50% death rate in 2 different species of fish. Another more recent study by Green et al. Also showed that cigarette butts can impair plant growth. In addition to all the toxic chemicals they contain, cigarette butts, when ingested by wildlife, can cause digestive blockage leading to death. And those that survive all the toxin and all the plastic will still bioaccumulate up the food chain and onto our plates. Now let's bring the project back into our home community. In August, we conducted 10 litter surveys in 9 different sites across Mississauga, where we counted 5,372 pieces of litter, and 73%, or 3,905 of them, were cigarette butts. What is more notable is that at Windwash Woods Park, where we perform a litter cleanup 2 weeks in a row, we still found 164 pieces of cigarette butts during our second cleanup. This is a snapshot of the number of cigarette butts being littered in a single area in our home community each week. Currently, in the region of Peel, when cigarette butts are not littered, they go straight to landfill. However, TerraCycle, a Toronto-based company, has a free tobacco waste recycling program that would turn cigarette butts and other tobacco-related waste into shipping pallet and parcel number. Now I have to ask, why are we letting the cigarette butts pollute our home communities, poison our water systems and wildlife when we can upcycle them to bring about a circular economy? As such, I propose 3 actionable proposals. 1, install publicly accessible butt collection canisters. Montreal spends $40 million each year on cigarette butt cleanup. That is the equivalent to the cost of installing 400,000 butt collection canisters. 2, awareness raising. I believe that many smokers litter because they believe cigarette butts are biodegradable and are therefore not considered litter. Therefore, declare cigarette butts as the last acceptable form of litter. Distribute butt litter education information, as well as better signage and existing infrastructures are also crucial. 3, amend bylaws to include cigarette butt litter and mandate private properties to have public ashtrays on site and or fines for having cigarette butt litter on property. Before I end my presentation, I would like to remind you of the cost of action versus inaction. In this case, cost of action is measurable by monetary values, but the cost of inaction is immeasurable. After all, what is the cost of clean drinking water? Thank you.
Lisa, thank you very much for your presentation. I have some questions. Councillor Raz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming today, Lisa.
Yes.
I also understand you were a Conservation Youth Corps volunteer this past summer for a couple of days, so thank you for that. And I'm sure you saw a lot of cigarette butts in our natural areas. A couple of things. We recently put in the city of Mississauga, I'm going to get to the point, but some dog poop containers that created energy. Mm-hmm. And people will go the extra mile to make sure that those dog poop bags get into those containers. So rather than go to the nearest garbage can, I think we need to, if people know that cigarette butts can be used for alternate uses, I think they will take that extra initiative. There's also been some creative ways that people can get rid of their cigarette butts. I saw one recently where there was, outside of an office building, they have 2 slots. It's a cigarette butt holder, and they have 2 slots, and one of them was who's the ultimate or hockey player. And it looked like Wayne Gretzky was in the lead. So I think we need to get creative. You're right, we absolutely need to do more education and whatever that we as councillors can do to help to get the message out that there's better ways to take care of your cigarette butt and also reinforce that message that they aren't biodegradable. Happy to help. Thank you very much for coming today and bringing attention to the issue.
Thank you. Councillor Dillon.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to staff, is there anything in particular that we do to combat cigarette butt litter?
So through the chair, certainly with respect to cigarette butt litter in areas that have been identified as hotspots, especially with implementation of the Smoke-Free Outdoor bylaw as well as the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, there have been canisters that have been put in place in order to, receptacles essentially, to collect the cigarette butt litter. As staff, if council is interested in this issue, staff would be very willing to look into it and report back further. I do think it's important to understand that with companies such as TerraCycle, there are very strong links to big tobacco, and in fact, one of their major sponsors is Santa Fe Natural Tobacco, which is part of the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, and so I think the region wants to think very carefully about conflict of interest as well, so perhaps if council is agreeable, staff could report back on this issue further.
So I'd like to move that. One of the things I've seen increasingly, I know there's some stats that say, cigarette use is down, but more and more I see, as you're driving, people are throwing their butts outside. As you're walking, around different workplaces as well. Even, not to name any names, some of our councillors just this morning were smoking and threw their butts on the ground. So I think we got to take it. It's it's up to all of us, and so it's one of my pet peeves. Right, I've seen some animals, choking on some of these as well, and you hear some stories, and so I really look forward to the report back, and hope I didn't offend anybody on council, but we got to do our part, and we got to set an example as well as councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Downey.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Dillon beat me to the punch, so happy to second that. Anything we can do through our health department, through our waste department, I think it's definitely up to us to take this on. Thank you.
Thank you. That is my list. So with that, Councillor Dillon and Councillor Joanna have moved receipt of the deputant and direction to staff that that report come back. Do I need a formal vote? All those in favor by show of hands. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Lisa, thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, moving on, and I again was remiss. We have 7.3 and 7.4 in the agenda, but the proponents, the deputants, have told me it makes a little more sense if we reverse those, and I'm happy to do that. So now we will go to item 7.4 first. Michelle Curry-Sharples, principal, and Sam Bennett, teacher, Floridale Public School, and Kimberly Wallace, public health nurse, Peel Public Health, regarding the high-impact, easy approach leading to healthier youth pledge program. And this also relates to report 7.3 and 17.2 that we're bringing forward at this time. Welcome.
Thank you.
And before your school was a school, I used to pick apples on your property.
Oh.
That's not why you moved ahead in the agenda, though. I want to be clear. Carry on, please.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Michelle Curry-Sharples. I'm the principal of Floridale Public School, and we're located in South Mississauga near Highway 10 and the Queensway. We are a kindergarten to grade 6 school with 650 students, and we're a very diverse community with many of our families new to Canada. 83% of our students are learning English as a second language, and we currently this year have 41 languages being spoken at home, 41 different languages. Our school is located in a lower socioeconomic area as a social risk index of 6 and a higher rate of students who have a dental need compared to those in other Peel schools. Because of this need, we receive preventive dental services from Peel Public Health in our school for 183 students during the 2017 and 2018 school year. And all of this factored into the decision to take on the Healthy Beverages Pledge, and I'll pass it off to my colleague to offer a bit more detail about that pledge.
Good morning. My name is Samantha Bennett. I have the honour of being the lead teacher on our Eco Green team at Floridale. The Healthy Beverage Pledge program, and specifically signing the Healthy Beverages Pledge, was a good fit with our school's Eco Green team. And the initiatives we're introducing as part of our Eco School certification. Last year we received gold certification. Our Green team has representation from every grade from 1 to 6, and which is unique. We actually have over 85 students in the school who are on the Green team. On Tap Water Thursdays, our grade 5 team members took the lead and went around to each class in grades K to 6, counting how many reusable water bottles were brought in and being used and placed on the students' desks. Morning announcements were made with daily eco tips to promote Floridale's Healthy Beverages Pledge and to encourage staff and students to drink more water. For example, H2O to go. Take your reusable water bottle everywhere you go and sip throughout the day. We were excited to receive a water filling station in March this year through joint support from Peel Public Health and the Peel District School Board. This was so important because we noticed an increase in tap water consumption, and so far we have prevented over 9,000 plastic water bottles ending up in a landfill. All classes at Floridale participated in the Healthy Beverage Challenge. Over the course of the year, we noticed that 70% of the student body were bringing in reusable water bottles.
So my name's Kim Wallace, and I'm the public health nurse that's been working with Floridale. The school shared their class success stories at the year-end assembly when the Green team presented the School Water Challenge results. the school provided reusable water bottles with their own school logo to the winning class of the Healthy Beverages Challenges. Floridale Public School wants to continue working with public health to further promote drinking tap water. The plan is to start earlier in the school year, work with the Green Team to implement the Healthy Beverages Challenges, and encourage students to consider water as the drink of choice at school as well as during school events. Floridale is really working hard to enhance the culture and environment in the school by supporting healthy student behaviors through small, impactful changes that shape day-to-day health choices. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have questions at this time. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation this morning. Chair, I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to touch on some of the points that they spoke to in your presentation. One of them especially is the dental need and the fact that doing this program and getting children off sugar beverages is a great thing for prevention of dental caries. And as you know, as a public health nurse, caries begin in a young age, and because the teeth are still forming and they're not strong enough. So starting off at a young age, kindergarten, that actually gets these kids into the routine or the habit of drinking water as opposed to the sugary drinks. So thank you for doing that. And of course, children that suffer with tooth decay, I'm getting a root canal today, by the way. So I drank a lot of sugary drinks when I was younger, but that affects them in many, many ways. It affects their ability to learn, it affects their self-confidence, and it leads to a whole lot of other issues. So thank you for doing that. And I want to just let you know that in Peel Region, and I'm certainly very proud of this region, because we have invested a whole lot of money to make sure that our drinking water is safe. We've built great water treatment plants, and so to our staff, they have done an amazing job with our water treatment plants, that we have the best water really in Ontario. So thank you to our staff. And the fact that they're carrying the water bottle, and I do carry my water bottle, and not drinking from the disposable plastic bottles, because not only do they end up in landfill, but they end up in the ocean. And right now, climate change is a big topic right across this country, I think right across the world. And one of the things that we're seeing is really a shift in climate and temperatures, just from one extreme to the other. So keeping these water bottles and everything else that we throw that end up in the ocean really is a great thing. And again, this morning with the cigarette butts, if we all do our part in making sure these things are not just thrown and end up in our landfill sites or in the ocean, I think our environment will be a much better place. So thank you for your efforts, and I hope that other schools within Peel Region is also going to follow your lead and start promoting this program. So thank you again.
Thank you. Next up, your Ward 7 councillor for Floridale School, Councillor DeMerla.
Thank you, Chair. Floridale. I just wanted to welcome all of you. I'm your ward councillor, and I'm very familiar with Floridale. In fact, one of my staff, 2 of his boys go to Floridale. So I do hear every now and then about events in your school, and I've visited your school. So I just wanted to congratulate you for the initiative. You really have 70% of the students using recyclable water bottles. I mean, that is amazing. I just personally, one of the things that I'd like to really see is a ban on single-use plastics. Many countries, many jurisdictions have done that, and I look forward to that conversation in the months and years to come. But in the meantime, congratulations. Did have one question. I know Floridale is doing this, but is it other schools that you're aware of in Mississauga that are doing this as well?
Oh, yes.
Through the chair, perhaps I'll answer that question if that's okay. Yeah, so the Healthy Pledge program is implemented across Peel Region in both the Peel District School Board as well as the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board, which captures over 90% of students in the region. At this time, we have about 44% of schools on board, and we are continuing to bring more schools onto the program. And so this encompasses the 4 pledges that exist and are in the council report, and you'll get to hear from the other school board in the next delegation about the work they're doing as well.
Thank you. So this Healthy Pledge is part of the provincial program, that province-wide program?
Through the chair, no. This is a Made in Peel program, in fact, and it's one of the things that we've done to really create efficiency. So we have 24 public health nurses on this team, over 400 schools in the region, and we can't work necessarily one-on-one with every child to teach them about some of the healthy steps they can take in their life. So what we've done is partner with the school boards, including the principals, the teachers, the superintendents, and most importantly, the students themselves, in order to figure out what the needs are within that school and how they can best make positive health changes.
Thank you anyway. Congratulations again, and well done.
Thank you. Ladies, thank you very much for your presentation. Next up, I have Rosemary Pizzelli, principal, and Megan Thimio, teacher and librarian. Sorry, let me start again. Next up, I have Rosemary Pizzelli, principal, and Megan Thimio, teacher and librarian, Our Lady of Providence School, and Dilraj Soor Public Health School, Public Health, regarding the high impact, easy approach leading to healthier youth, Healthy Pledge program. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you. So good morning, everyone. I just want to thank you first for the opportunity to showcase our school's efforts in promoting healthy schools through physical activity. I just want to acknowledge our Catholic School Board trustee was here just a moment, just stepped out. Sean Xavier, we want to thank him for his support, his ongoing support. And we have Lucy Papaloni, Superintendent of Healthy Schools, who's also here to support us. So we want to thank them as well. So my name is Rosemary Pizzelli, and I'm in my 23rd year as a Catholic school principal. Currently, I am the proud Catholic school principal of Our Lady of Providence Catholic School, located in Brampton North. The school is about 22 years old, and it has a current enrollment of just over 600 students. So our grades span from junior kindergarten to grade 8, but it also accommodates the regional French immersion program, grades 1 to 8. So physical activity has always been a big focus in my school. Of course, including gym classes, sports teams. We also run skating programs, swimming programs, monthly school-wide walks, which I'm very dear about, and Zumba, to name a few. On October 5, 2017, the ministry released a revised PPM 138, which stated that a requirement that schools must ensure that all elementary school students, including students with special education needs, have a minimum of 20 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity each day during instructional time. So daily physical activity, or DPA for short, helps to build a culture of physical activity in the school, which can instill the value of physical activity for life in our children and help improve health and learning outcomes for all children. Our scores are improving, so I want to add that. I'm very grateful that our community partner, Peel Health, introduced the Healthy Schools Pledge program. We decided to focus on the Daily Physical Activity Pledge program. So teachers had to ensure that at least 20 minutes of vigorous activity is included in their instructional day. On those days that there's no gym, for example, or sports and so on, teachers must utilize strategies that promote the physical activity. We've also turned to OPHEA, the Ontario Physical Health Association, for ideas, and you will see some of the work that we've done using the OPHEA activity cards, and these activities are usually but not always taking place in the classrooms. I'll now turn it over to our lead teacher, Megan Thimio, who will speak to the rollout of our DPA Pledge program.
We kicked off our DPA Healthy Pledge by initiating what we called shake breaks, where the entire school first danced to freestyle music 2 times per day over the PA system. It was a huge success. We stepped it up more formally by introducing the Ontario Physical Health Education Association, also known as OPHEA, activity card exercises, which you will soon see during our video. These exercises were selected to student grade level, according to student grade level and ability. Students were trained by our Peel Health nurse, Dilraj Soor, and myself during lunch hour in the gym, and were encouraged to lead their peers in these exercises for 20 minutes each day. Our goal was to re-energize our students by ensuring vigorous physical activity each day school-wide. Once again, our Peel Health nurse, Dilraj Soor, will speak to our video presentation.
To celebrate our successes, we compiled a very short video and presented it to the entire school body at the end of the school year. The students were ecstatic to see themselves on screen, and parents were enthusiastic to see their children online through the school's Twitter feed. This engaged the entire school community in our DPA initiatives. As you will see, the video captures snippets of a few of our DPA activities over the course of the school year. Please enjoy our video.
Well done, ladies. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to conclude
Please.
by saying that we're going to continue to work with our Peel Health partners this year, promoting our Healthy Schools initiatives. And once again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Councillor Parrish.
Thanks for coming today. This is very innovative, and it doesn't require money or expensive equipment. And you're preparing your kids for when they grow up to go on cruise ships and be able to do that in a coordinated fashion. I have never been able to do that, never been on a cruise ship, but or a country and western thing where they do that snappy dancing. But no, I have to compliment you on being quite innovative, that you made it fun. The kids are obviously having a good time, and they don't feel as self-conscious because the kids beside them are doing it. So really well done.
Thank you. Councillor Sato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I love the video, and I love the fact that seeing the older kids participating and looking as if they were really enjoying it, with not just being forced to do it. It reminded me of something we used to do here at council, which I would like to suggest that we reinstitute. Some years ago, we had a committee that I sat on, the Healthy Cities, and one of our initiatives that we did, we introduced using the stairs. That was the big push. And the staircases here at the Region of Peel have art in them. They're painted brightly, and we really encourage employees to use the stairs. And we did the same thing at the City of Mississauga. So we, with signs on the elevators directing people to the stairs, et cetera. But in order to get council involved, we instituted a council exercise break during a council meeting, because we can be sitting here for many, many hours, and about halfway through the meeting, you'll recall, Mr. Chair, we had the break, and we had a video that was up there. We played music, and it was just basically, you know, moving around, not quite doing what the kids were doing. But I would like to suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we start that again so that we're not just encouraging the community, the young people, to exercise and lead healthy lives, but we're actually leading by design, or by example. Sorry, I don't know why I said by design. That we're leading by example. So I would ask if our public health staff would bring that back, and you know, we could maybe even play this video to energize us. So that's my suggestion, that you kind of spark that again, because we got away from it, but it was a very healthy way for us to work as well.
We would be happy to loan you our DPA activity cards.
Okay, we'll refer that right on to staff, and they'll get back to us. It's a great, and you're right, we used to do it in days gone by, and it is a good idea. Okay, thank you. Ladies, thank you very much for your presentation, and we really enjoyed that video. With that, I am asking for receipt of delegations 7.3 and 7.4, and also to deal with report 17.2 at this time. And because of the report, I need a recorded vote. You're happy with direction? So all those in favor, it has been moved by Councillor Dipika Demirla and seconded by Councillor Sado for those three items. Show of hands, please. That carries unanimously. Thank you, and thank you once again. Okay, that brings us to 7.5. Abid Arif, resident of the City of Mississauga, regarding excessive water bill. Mr. Arif? Is item 7.5, I hope I pronounced it, Abid Arif, resident, City of Mississauga, regarding an excessive water bill. Don't believe the gentleman is here. Okay, we will move on. Staff presentations, and as determined, we're going to go to 8.3 first. That is the service level implications for Peel programs impacted by provincial envelope funding reductions. A presentation by Norn Lum, Director of Business and Financial Planning, Kathy Granger, Acting Commissioner of Health Services, and Suzanne Finn, Director, Early Years and Child Care Services. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Regional Council. So 2 weeks ago, I presented the estimated financial impact of the provincial funding changes. And as experienced over the past few months, new information and new announcements have been received since then. The revised estimate for the financial impact is now $25.5 million in 2020, with an additional $10.3 million by the year 2022. This represents a total impact of $35.8 million, which, when compared to the province's initial announcements in May and April, represents a $9.3 million improvement over the original $45.1 million estimated impact. So as articulated at the September 12th meeting and at the July 11th meeting, there were 5 programs that faced potential funding envelope reductions from the province. Child care, paramedic services, long-term care, which recently received an announcement which decreases the impact for 2020 by $500,000, employment support, and public health. So to inform the 2020 budget, staff are providing council with the options and strategies to mitigate the risk to service levels resulting from the funding reductions. I will now pass it over to Kathy to present the risks and recommendations related to health services.
Thanks, Norm. Good morning, members of council. So due to your support, municipal advocacy efforts, as you know, the province reversed its decision to freeze paramedic levels at 2017, so that was reversed. So the province did pledge a sector growth 4% increase in funding for land ambulance across the province. So we're good for 2019. We're still waiting for confirmation for 2020 and 2021 funding. But for now, there's no immediate service implications. But again, this funding does not address our ongoing growth in calls for the region. For long-term care, as Norm mentioned, hot off the press on Friday, they postponed some of their cuts. The expected shortfall is still $0.4 million till the end of 2020, because one of their cuts was only deferred till March 31st. We have found some 0.4 million cost avoidant measures in some areas. No service risks, and we're going to continue to focus, though, on cost avoidance and efficiencies for long-term care ongoing. For public health, as you're aware, the 70-30 cost share starts January 1st, 2020. It includes 100% funded programs, except seniors, dental, and a few other isolated programs. Public health received the same funding for 2019 as it received in 2018, and we expect this to continue to freeze for 2020, but again, we have not received confirmation of that. And as in previous years, the funding does not address growth or some of the unique health issues in Peel. So in public health, we still have a potential shortfall of 0.9 million, offset by some efficiencies that we found in low-risk areas. So of course, there's the risk to community health ongoing, as public health must delay or defer some of their work to avoid costs. Additional risk as well is that any budget reduction may be compounded by the province in future cost share support that they provide. We're going to recommend in the 2020 budget 0.7 million added to maintain some of the core service levels until we have a little bit more information from the province in terms of their plan for public health transformation. Thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate this opportunity to provide you with a brief outline of the impacts of the recent funding reductions on childcare and our recommendations for addressing the shortfall in funding. As Norm's presentation mentioned, the provincial budget introduced funding changes for early years in childcare. We're projecting, as a result of these changes, the region of Peel will have $17.8 million less for childcare in 2020. At the meeting on July the 11th, Council approved the end of fee stabilization support program. This program was $4.9 million cost, which was 100% funded by the province. So that leaves us with an actual shortfall of $12.9 million. I'll now address our recommendations for this shortfall. Today, we're seeking Council's approval for $5.6 million to address the impact of the provincial reductions on childcare services in Peel. Without this support, by December 2020, there'll be a wait list of approximately 1,000 fee subsidy clients or 1,100 children waiting for special needs supports. We haven't had a wait list in Peel since 2013. As a service system manager, we're required to prioritize fee subsidy and special needs resourcing, and that's what we've done by requesting this funding. We're also recommending the elimination of the current childcare fee reduction initiative to offset the 7.3 shortfall. Since January 2018, approximately 12,000 children aged birth to 4 years of age were supported through this initiative. However, the current program supports all families of all income levels. The province anticipates that the new care child tax is expected to provide relief to low and moderate income families with up to 75% of eligible childcare costs, so this will help. As part of our ongoing commitment to increasing accountability around the use of public funds, we're examining how we can improve all of our funding initiatives. This includes a few affordability strategies. Our recommendations are based on the information we have to date. If additional information is available through announcements or when we receive our 2020 provincial allocation report, we'll update Council accordingly. At this time, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
And I have a list. Councillor Vicente.
Thank you. Just a question of staff. When you eliminate the fee reduction initiative, what does that look like for the folks who are using the service?
So currently,
what does that mean?
Currently the service supports children in licensed childcare from 0 to 4 years of age. Depending on how many days they're in childcare and the time, it's about $12 less a day for families receiving support.
So in other words, if you remove the reduction, they will be paying an additional $12 a day more for,
that's correct, for full-time.
These services?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ras.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Can you just go back one slide on the recommendation slide? Thank you. For the rate reduction initiative, do you say that this wasn't income tested, so this was for everybody regardless of income?
So part of our priorities for the Region Appeal was to afford the rates across all of Region Appeal. So there's been many studies that the rates in the Region Appeal are the highest across. So our strategy was to support the rates, not necessarily income tests to the families. So that's correct. So it supported all families.
Okay, would we be in a position, based on our back-end service information, to be able to do that? So provide those services for people who need it most versus regardless of income?
So for us, through our fee subsidy initiative, we do support families with subsidy. Currently, for this year, we support about $94 million towards fee subsidy for families of low and moderate income families.
Okay. So I guess I'm looking for a little bit more information on
Councillor, perhaps Commissioner Sheehy I should acknowledge because she put her name on the list, then I'll come right back to you. Commissioner Sheehy.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the way in which this rate reduction initiative worked, and Suzanne can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we provided funding to our providers to enable them to reduce costs so that all parents received reduced fees. So it wasn't specifically targeted to an income level, it was across the boards. And this initiative itself would be very difficult to implement on an income-tested basis.
Okay, that's where I was going. Thank you for clarifying that. What has the response been from the service providers then? Are they able to find efficiencies in their operations so they would be less impacted by these funding reductions?
So through the chair, we believe the impact will be more to the families in the Region Appeal. Market rates determine how many families enter in, so there will be viability issues if some families have to exit as a result. There has been positive feedback from families about the rebate, but tying it to the care with the reduction that people will receive some relief will be something that we'll be tying it to. The other thing is not all municipalities were able to manage this because we eliminated ourselves from direct delivery of childcare. We had more money to put into care. So there probably was just a handful of municipalities that were, and majority of them are exiting out as well as a result of these changes.
Okay, and I guess my question would be to Norm. Were there opportunities to make up this funding shortfall from the early years in childcare area, and can it be found from other areas within the organization?
So through the chair, and I'll defer to Suzanne. I know they are actively looking for efficiencies within the overall childcare program. As I said 2 weeks ago, when we present the budget, 2020 budget for council's consideration in November, we're already looking within the other service to try to mitigate the overall tax impact of the region. So we're already looking for ways to mitigate costs. And there will be a report going to council, I think on November 14th, on the efficiencies we found over the year.
Okay, thank you for that. I guess we'll work through this as, the budget process goes forward, but I think at this point, this is probably a prudent approach, but hopefully we can find some additional efficiencies in other areas to make sure that we're keeping this area whole, because I think families need that support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Crombie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you for bringing this to our attention. This is you have found more savings since the last time this came forward, I believe. The initial go at this, when the first cuts were announced, was $38 million was going to be the hit to our budget. And then there were some changes made. So do I understand this correctly? You're now estimating $22.3 million to our budget.
Yes, that's correct. But the 22.3 is just for region-controlled programs. It still excludes the 3.2 million for external agencies. There's 2.6 for Peel Regional Police and 0.6 million for the conservation authorities.
And how much of this savings was done through cost avoidance and efficiencies that you have found?
So the impacts that you see in the report on the province's funding is just pure funding changes from the province.
Okay.
So that's before any efficiencies we've found yet. This is just a direct impact of what the province has done.
And the additional investment that you're asking for in certain areas, I'm just going to go through them in a minute, are they coming from the tax, are they tax funded, or are you asking for money from reserves? Or let's be clear on what you're asking for.
So through the chair, what we're recommending today is directly funded from the property tax base. So at the end of the day, all the recommendations totaled together are about $6.7 million, which represents an increase of 0.6% on the net tax levy.
0.6, so not a percentage, just more than half a percentage, okay. And let's go through each section. So paramedic, that will be an increase for only 2020 and 2021, and that is because there's been a freeze since 2017, is that correct? They're just really bringing, as I see the chief here, and I think he's been frozen since 2017 on the funding.
So through the chair, as Kathy had mentioned in her presentation, initially they had announced a funding freeze for paramedics that froze their funding at 2017 service levels.
Okay.
And subsequent to that, they had to unfroze the freezing. So
They
unfroze the freezing.
They unfroze the freezing, okay.
So
I like the unfreezing.
So that left, but they announced a 4%
Unfreezing is good.
increase for 2020, and they've tentatively announced an increase for 2021. So for the 2020 budget, there is no funding impact for paramedics, recognizing the funding doesn't account for service demand growth yet.
Correct, because we do have growth planned, right? I can see the chief nodding. I know how many more stations he's got planned to open. We opened one this week, so. Okay, on long-term care, the next one. So you found the shortfall of 0.4 million, but you've managed to make accommodations through cost avoidance measures. And what kind of measures are those that you have found?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we partnered with the Mississauga LHIN for a different type of staffing model for our butterfly for Sheridan Villa, so we're able to avoid some of the staffing costs for that home at the present time. But we still continue to look for efficiencies and cost avoidances as we go further.
I think I speak for everyone here that no one wants to see an impact of the butterfly model.
Yeah. No, I'll be coming back through the budget to continue to ask for staff for butterfly. Thank you.
Okay, and on public health, the same. So the freeze continues to 2020 on this, but we were over contributing in public health anyways, is that correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
We were over 70%?
Yeah, we were currently funding 34%.
34.
So for
So we won't be
2019, it's
impacted.
25%, and for 2020, it's at 30%. And in
Okay.
2021,
But you're
it's
still showing a 0.7 million shortfall.
yeah, that is correct.
And that'll be on the tax base.
Through the chair, the recommendations for additional $700,000 in the 2020 budget, the public health team managed to find savings of just under $200,000.
Okay, so 700,000 will be on the tax bill. That's where I'm going with this. We already discussed the early years and childcare through Councillor Rass. And again, that's a $5.6 million shortfall that you will be not funding through tax dollars. No, 7.3 million.
Yeah, that is correct. We will be adding 5.6 to the net tax levy budget.
Okay. Okay, so bottom line for us is 22.3. Is that correct, to the tax bill for 2020?
Well, that's the funding impact from the province. So today's recommendation just addresses part of the 22.3. There's part of the funding that we're not recommending. So as you mentioned, there's $7.3 million that we're not recommending be funded to the tax base.
Okay, so what's the total amount that's being added to the tax bill again? So we're all very clear. Is that the 19.9?
So the funding impact, if you go look at the chart, so the funding impact is $23.1 million at the end of the day. That's including external agencies. What we're recommending to be added to the net tax levy is a total of $6.7 million.
6.7.
Yes.
We'll all be asked, so 6.7 million as a result of the funding cuts. Very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Thompson.
Follow up by Mayor Crombie. The last couple of questions is where I was wanting to get to. I guess back to you, Norm. Is there anything else is there another shoe to drop before we get to budget? I guess this is what we really need to know. Is this it, or is there more to come that's come out of the budget? Do we know?
Through the chair, that's the same question we have. As I mentioned early in the presentation, we seem to be receiving announcements every couple of days, and we've been trying to adjust our numbers as more details come out. And sometimes it's very difficult to interpret what the province announces, because there are very few details.
So this is the issue that we're having coming forward. We're starting into budget deliberations, and once we get a budget approved, then all of a sudden we have something come out at us at left field. I think this is the concern going forward, because at the end of the day, all they're doing is shifting responsibilities. People are still paying taxes, just a different way. Instead of income, it's coming off the property tax, and we're already paying the highest property tax of any other province. So this is a concern that we have going forward. For Ontario, but this is something that I'm just quite concerned going forward. Where's all this going to end? And before we get completed in the budget, I really hope this is it, so we know where we're at. But I have to say, thank you for being so nimble to be able to adapt as quick as you are to keep us informed. It was very helpful to us. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my list of speakers. I have a motion, I hope will be moved by Mayor Crombie and seconded by Mayor Thompson, that reads that the Peel paramedics maintain service levels for 2020 with the resources required to meet community needs included as part of the proposed 2020 budget. And further, that public health maintain core service levels for 2020. And further, that the long-term care maintain service levels for 2020. And further, that a mitigation strategy for long-term care shortfall be presented to Regional Council as part of the proposed 2020 budget. And further, that $5.6 million in discretionary cost share to offset a 20% reduction in provincial funding for the child care expansion be approved, and further, that given the province's introduction of the Child Care Access and Relief from Expense Care Tax Credit, staff in the region's Child Care Fee Reduction Initiative to ensure that affordability funds are being used most efficiently. You've heard the motion. I need a recorded vote. All those in favor? Did Councillor Fortini wish to vote? Thank you. And that carries. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Bringing us to item 8.2, transitioning to the new Ontario Seniors Dental Care Program. Here for information, presentation by Dr. Jessica Hopkins, Medical Officer of Health, and Dr. Fahim Rashid, Dental Consultant. Welcome.
Good morning. Through the chair, this is another update on this significant new program that the province has announced. We wanted to keep you up to date of the things that are happening with it so that you can understand the transition to the new program. And so Dr. Rashid is going to speak to most of it.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you to the chair for allowing Dr. Hopkins and I the opportunity to provide you today with information on the transition plan for the current Region of Peel Seniors Dental Program to the new Ontario Seniors Dental Care Program. Since 2008, the regional program has provided access to free dental treatment to eligible low-income seniors. The provision of a dental program for vulnerable seniors aligns with the new 2018-2022 term of council priority to enhance senior supports and services to optimize seniors' quality of life. Every year, approximately 800 seniors are provided access to one full course of dental treatment available once per lifetime. The program is fully funded by the region with a 2019 approved budget of approximately $1.7 million. A larger number of our seniors, about 80% of them, are provided services through our two partner community health centers in Mississauga and Brampton, which we see to be a cost-effective method of delivering services. And a smaller number of them, approximately 20%, are provided services through fee-for-service private dental providers. Services that we provide include those that help remove pain and infection, reduce complications of untreated dental conditions, and restore reasonable function. As of July 11th, 2019, there were 668 seniors on the program waitlist with an approximate wait time of 5 months. The new Ontario Seniors Dental Care Program was announced in April this year and is expected to launch in fall. The Ministry of Health has not yet announced a specific implementation date. In October this year, we will be sharing with you information on the capital funding application to the Ministry for new dental infrastructure needs to support the delivery of the program. Again, there are some key differences between the two programs. Income thresholds for eligibility differ. The provincial program allows for more couples but less singles to access dental care. This means that there will be some seniors who are on our wait list or who are currently enrolled in the program who may not be eligible for the new program and who will continue to receive services through the region until their treatment is complete. Eligible seniors can access services anywhere in the province and can do so on an ongoing basis, provided they are eligible. As mentioned, a large number of seniors are provided services through our community health centers and less so through private dental providers. That's with our current regional program. However, with the new program, services will be provided through public dental clinics, and that includes the public health unit clinics as well as the community health centers and the Aboriginal Health Access Centers. Also, the ministry has shared some additional information about the basket of services that will be covered by the program. Eligible seniors will need to pay a 10% co-payment to the Board of Health for denture services. And that may be a deterrent for some seniors who are wishing to access care. At this point in time, I'll bring in Dr. Hopkins to speak to the next slide.
So in the report presented to Regional Council on July 11th, Council approved the following recommendations to support a seamless transition and to ensure that no waitlisted or enrolled seniors would fall through the gap. So the first was that the Region of Peel Seniors Dental Program continue to collect names and create a list to refer to the provincial program when it starts, and we have been doing that. That seniors currently enrolled or on the program waitlist who do not meet the provincial eligibility criteria be provided treatment through the Region of Peel Seniors Dental Program. And again, we are acting on that. That we implement the new Ontario Seniors Dental Care Program based on the provincial implementation date, and we are awaiting final details on that from the province. And the last was around continuing to advocate for the private practitioner process available now in the Region of Peel. So on the last point, staff have continued to advocate during meetings with ministry staff, through MPPs, and in a formal letter, which is attached as an appendix to the report. To date, we have not been successful, but we are continuing to meet with the ministry and advocate this position. I did want to remind councillors that fee-for-service dental providers are more costly. They cost about $2,200 per client served, compared to CHCs, which are about $1,400 per client. However, there are other benefits to using fee-for-service providers, including continuity of care, geographic access, meeting specific cultural needs, including first language use, and available capacity. And so we will continue to work on this advocacy issue and update council as more information becomes available.
So again, to emphasize, our key goals for this transition plan are to ensure that the transition to the new program is seamless for seniors currently enrolled or on the wait list. We want to make sure that none of these seniors lose access to care as a result of the transition. Since July 15th, we stopped accepting seniors to the regional program waitlist and have created a list to refer and navigate seniors to the new program. The region continues to provide services to enrolled or waitlisted seniors in the current program until the new program starts. So we have identified a number of considerations as we move through this transition. One, again, with respect to eligibility, seniors who are currently enrolled or on the wait list and who are eligible for the new program will be provided with navigation and enrollment support to ensure that they're able to transition smoothly. And seniors who are ineligible for the provincial program will continue to receive services through our regional program until their treatment is complete. These seniors will continue to receive services into 2020 and 2021 to accommodate for dental claim extensions for health-related reasons and access to denture relines as well. With respect to communication, Peel Public Health will connect with seniors dental program stakeholders, and that includes local advocacy groups, service delivery partners, dental provider associations, private dental providers, etc., to keep them informed of changes to the regional program and to provide them with information about the new program. With respect to capacity, a constraint is expected at the community health centers when the provincial program launches, as there will be an overlap with the current program. There will also be an influx of seniors from outside Peel choosing to access services here, given our established infrastructure. This will cause a delay in seniors receiving services, and a waitlist may develop for the provincial program. Peel Public Health has considered options to alleviate this delay, including funding Malton's Four Corners Health Centre, which is currently not operational. Peel Public Health has also advocated, as Dr. Hopkins had mentioned, has also advocated for delivery of services through private dental providers. Peel Public Health has also applied for one-time capital funding to develop dental infrastructure to increase that capacity. And finally, the regional program will continue to require dedicated resources from the region to support ongoing program implementation, administration, and management until it is replaced by the provincial program. It is important to note that the transition plan is based on current program information. The plan may be adjusted as more information becomes available from the province. For 2019, Peel Public Health received approximately $2.9 million in base funding to implement the new provincial program. That's a prorated amount for April 1st, 2019 until the end of the year. In 2020, base funding in the amount of approximately $3.9 million is expected to implement the program over a full calendar year. The 2019 regional program budget is expected to be spent in full. In 2020 and 2021, the regional program will continue to phase out using the regional tax base to provide services to seniors currently enrolled or waitlisted but not eligible for the provincial program, and to accommodate for those medical extensions and denture relines. With the provincial program expected to start in fall 2019, it is estimated that the regional program will require a budget of $475,000 for those currently waitlisted or enrolled but not eligible for the new program. The cost will be managed through the existing 2019 regional tax base. Thank you very much, and we are happy to take any questions that you may have.
And there are several. Councillor Groves.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you both for your presentation. And as you know, I've been a very big supporter of this program since we started the regional program here. I do have some questions, and actually one. I guess there are some really good benefits to the provincial program because it's the way I read the report, we're able to accommodate a lot more seniors through this program. The only, and I do have some concerns, so I'm thankful that the province has recognized the need for the seniors dental program and for treatment. But I guess I have a concern with the 10% fee that these seniors have to pay. That's why they are not able to afford the dental treatment, and that's why they're low income, because most of these seniors on their pension, they're just barely making ends meet. So is there any way for us to communicate this with the province and to continue some advocacy to say we just can't, a lot of them can't afford?
Through the chair, thank you for that. And we share your concern, Councillor Groves, around the cost. We've calculated it out. So denture reline is about $850. And so it'd be about $85 is what would be the cost, which can be a significant amount for someone on with a low income. We have been advocating actively as staff to the province on this issue and raising our concern with it. And we would certainly welcome further support from council to continue to do that, and potentially a letter if you so choose.
I think we need to do that, Mr. Chair, and I think a letter needs to come from you. And I'm just going to give you an example. The pension that my mom, the money she receives in pension, she's in a long-term care home. It's not even enough to cover the cost of the long-term care home. And I'm certain that there are several other seniors who are in that same boat and may not have family members or that extra income somewhere to offset the cost of being in their home or just affording any care. So I thank you for that. And Mr. Chair, I'm sure members around this table will be more than happy to support you on sending that letter. The other thing that I had a concern with is in the report, there's somewhere in the report, it spoke to other seniors coming in from other municipalities. We already have a huge demand here in Peel. So how, and I hate to say, well, don't treat those people, but you know, I have to be taking, we have to take care of our own backyard first and our own home and our residents before reaching out to other municipalities, because as we just talked about the short shortfall in funding and the funding cuts that's going to affect us. So how are we dealing with that?
Through the chair, so this is a provincial program. It's similar to the way we receive healthcare, for example, through hospitals, and Ontario can choose to go to any hospital in Ontario to receive care. In this case, an Ontarian who meets the criteria for the program can choose to go to any clinic in Ontario to receive care for that as well. We anticipate this to be a challenge, particularly in the early years, as some of the neighboring health units do not have as much infrastructure as we do here in Peel because of the program that Council had started a number of years ago. So we have been in conversation with those other health units as well as the province to figure out how we can do this and how we appropriately triage people so that those folks get care who most need it, while also respecting the importance of serving our local population. So we will come back with more information as it's available from the province, but at this point in time, seniors can enter the program in any jurisdiction in Ontario.
Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to when you come back with some information on that, because I think that that's going to create some challenges for us here in Peel. Because at this point in time, we can't even keep up with the demand that we have for this program. The other thing that I was concerned about is the couples versus singles. Now, you know, as people age, they lose a spouse, and you might be finding that they're, and I'm telling you, if you look into the long-term care homes, you get more singles there, and so I see that as a challenge, and I don't know how we're going to address that.
So through the chair, the eligibility is reassessed on a yearly basis. So should the relationship status of a client change, that will be reassessed in the coming year. And should they continue to be low income, they would be eligible then under the singles category of the program.
So I guess we will be keeping an eye on that. So as the program, when we go back after a year or whatever, we can go back with some of these, this stuff to the province, correct? Yep, that's good. And again, thank you for ensuring that the those seniors who are on the program currently will be, they will continue to have their treatment as the new program comes into effect, and certainly for $475,000, that's a very small investment to make in the well-being of these seniors, because earlier I said about children and how dental carries, and Doctor, you know that, how it affects them, and certainly investing today in those seniors to making sure that they have proper dental care is very important, because at the end of the day, if they can't eat, they're going to end up in the hospital, and it costs us more in the end. So thank you for the great work, Dr. Hopkins, that you and your team have done over the years for these seniors in this program. And again, I was a very big supporter when Councillor Parrish brought this program forward, because she saw the need. And I'm glad to see that you're looking, and I'm sure Councillor Parrish is going to talk about the one in Malton, that you're looking to open that centre, because it's currently not used. So thank you again.
Thank you. Councillor Demirla.
Thank you, Chair. And I think this is a breath of fresh air in terms of actually new programming coming from the province. And it does seem to be much more robust than the once-in-a-lifetime program that the region provided. I just was trying to understand, if I've understood you correctly, by the time we get to 2020, the dental program as it stands and proposed will be completely funded provincially, and the regional portion will be essentially savings. So I think it's the $1.7 million a year. So with that, if I'm seeing you nod, so my question is, when you came to that 6.7 million additional potential recommendation that staff have come out with in terms of budget implications, these savings have been rolled into that?
Through the chair, I will defer to the Chief Financial Officer.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. You'll see these costs rolled out based on the recommendation if council endorses. Actually, there is no recommendation in this one, but basically we'll be removing the regional contribution for this program. So that will offset increases in funding for so the child care subsidy of the $5.6 million in the public health funding. So those will be treated as separate buckets. So this will be a reduction to those overall costs.
Sorry, so I'm still not clear. Is the 6.7 million net of the 1.7 million savings, or not yet?
Exclusive of that.
Okay, so there is that 1.7 reserve. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parrish.
I'm just a little surprised hearing that we only do 20% fee-for-service. When this program was brought in, I guess it was the end of 2008, we did heavy negotiations. Jeanette Smith was up in the wee hours with the Dental Association to reduce their fees to 75% of their book fees for the fee-for-service people. When did that get changed? Has that just been a lack of fee-for-service dentists or a lack of a reduced fee? Because you're saying the difference is $2,200 to $1,400. Do we not have special rates with the regular dentists anymore?
Through the chair. So the change actually happened sometime around 2011. This is when we brought the community health centers, or maybe it was a little bit later than that, probably 2012, and I can confirm that. But when the community health centers came into play, I think it was around that time, we realized that the costs of delivering services through the CHCs are actually, it's much more cost effective relative to the fee-for-service providers. And so we had a few more of our seniors move towards the CHCs and less so towards the private dental providers.
And do we still get a reduced rate from the private dentists?
It's still, so the reimbursement is still at 70% of the fee guide.
70%?
70%, correct.
Okay, and that still results with $2,200 a patient rather than
That's correct,
$1,400?
Yes.
Okay. I know I brought this up before. Four Corners in Malton has two completely equipped dental offices, and they can't use them because they don't have the money to pay the dentists. So that is an easy fix, and it's a high-need area. So hopefully you'll come back with a recommendation that we fund a couple of dentists for that location. Okay, good. When I toured it, they even have lovely turquoise leather chairs, and I'm going, wow, I wouldn't mind sitting in here. You'd have to catch me first. The financial levels for the singles, as Councillor Groves brought up, if you go through any of the seniors' home, there's way more seniors in there. For those who, I know when my mom was in there, they knew her income from pensions and all the rest of it. They knew all that. So they knew if she was in need of care or she wasn't. So when she had to have dental work, I took her to my dentist, and I paid for it. Is there not a way we could look at the evaluations of the patients in there? The people that run those homes are going to know who can afford and who can't, so that you're not subsidizing every senior, you're only subsidizing the ones that you've got a hardcore number that you know they don't have the money.
Through the chair, what we are in conversation with the province around right now is for some flexibility around that. With other dental programs, they sometimes allow the health units some discretion to cover off those cases that you are talking about that would allow us to provide seniors who might just be slightly above the income cutoff to receive care if they need it.
Okay, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. It's interesting that the NDP in the federal election, I can remember back in 1993 with the Red Book with Chrétien when I ran, one of the things we promised was as soon as we balance the budget, there's going to be daycare for all, and it's never happened. The NDP knows they can't win, so they're now saying anybody earning less than $70,000 a year gets free dental care for their children. And it's not a bad thing. I think eventually the eyeballs and the teeth will become part of the human body. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sado.
Thank you. Could you put the slide back up? I think it was the second last one. Oh, you just went past it there. That one. Okay. First of all, I think it's, we've been advocating since we started the dental program here, thanks to Councillor Parrish bringing it forward. And our successive councils have been totally in accord to continue for the region of Peel providing it, even though it should always have been a provincial responsibility. And I think we can pull one thing that this government has actually listened to, and that was providing seniors dental. It's really unfortunate that previous governments didn't listen, didn't provide it, because it just makes sense. And it's about time. But I guess I'm a little confused. The administration of the program and the way the funding provision is going to work. So if a senior is going to apply for the provincial part of the program, are they going to be providing through public health, or they are applying, or are they going to apply directly to the province for the payments?
So through the chair, there's a central administrator who will look after the applications. And so the role of public health, and the program, keep in mind, it's still rolling out. We don't have all the details, is that we will likely be involved in navigation. So supporting clients to get enrolled in the program, which will be administered by ASERTA, which is the group that also does the Healthy Smiles Ontario program for children. And so they'll look after that portion. And then the funding flows to public health. And then we flow the funding to the community health centers in order to provide service to clients who meet eligibility criteria. So in many ways, it operates quite similar to the Healthy Smiles Ontario program.
Okay, so if this is the funding then that is flowing to public health to pay for the program. So what happens if the number of applications that are coming in for the program exceed the 2.9 in 2019, and well, I guess really we're looking at 2020. If it exceeds the base funding, who's on the hook to cover the additional cost?
So through the chair, at this point in time, we haven't had those discussions with the province. However, what generally happens in those cases is there is a wait list associated with the program. And so you need to prioritize who needs to be seen first. But we do anticipate there being a wait list for this program. We can provide further details to you on this issue as we get more information from the province.
And it would be the provincial provider or the administrator who would maintain that wait list and be dealing directly with the seniors who are applying for the program?
Through the chair, those details are still being worked out. I'm sorry that I can't give you more specific information on it. The way, I really see this rolling out is that we're going to be focused on getting people service. And so we flow money to this community health centers to see X number of clients, and we're going to be working with them to make sure they meet as many clients so we fully spend out this amount of money. I actually think in the early days, our limit will be on infrastructure available rather than on the dollar amount that is there, and we do anticipate there being a wait list.
And I guess, when we started getting a wait list and we increased funding, I can't remember what year it was, but we increased what we were funding so that we could start whittling down that wait list. And we were getting a lot of complaints from people who were on the wait list that it was taking so long for them to get the service. So I hope that the provision of a wait list or the establishing of a wait list is going to be maintained by the provincial administrator and not by the region of Peel, because that will then add a tremendous amount of workload to the staff of the region and we really shouldn't be administering, dealing directly with the seniors, just with our provision of service. But, you've made it very clear that what we have now, the community hubs that we have now cannot, given the new program, we will not be able to administer it. I would be willing to bet that we will get an excessive number of people from outside the region of Peel, because if you look around the other municipalities that are surrounding us, Halton, for example, and even beyond, I would wager that they are not set up as well as we are to provide this particular service. So seniors in those municipalities, and it's right that it should be open because it's provincial, but I would hope that we could make an argument as far as the infrastructure funding is concerned if we had some statistical data on what the other municipalities, Hamilton, Oakville, et cetera, what they are actually able to provide in the way of infrastructure, and knowing that if they can't, which I'm guessing that they can't, that we have more, maybe I'm wrong, that we will take that overflow, and if we could get some numbers there, not for us, but for you to take forward to support building our infrastructure so that we can handle that influx from outside the region.
Through the chair, we do have that information, and we have been using that information to advocate with the province to support our capital application. On, I believe it's October 24th, we will be bringing that information to you on our submission to the province, which does include increased infrastructure for Peel residents.
So obviously what I just said is correct, that the other municipalities cannot support it, so we're going to be dealing with it here. Okay, thank you. It's about time. I mean, it should just be handled under OHIP, where, quite frankly, they should have just made it an OHIP service where seniors could go to their dentist and it's sent into OHIP like other medical is, and prescriptions and everything else for seniors. This is just making it more complicated and restrictive. And, it didn't have to be that way, and they probably could have still been spending the same amount of money without adding in more layers of administration, which is probably not added into that cost. But we would have done it the right way if we were doing it.
Touche. Well said. Councillor Parrish.
Thank you for letting me speak a second time. My nasty little brain is working overtime. I have one daughter that lives quite a ways away. She lives on a lake. And their dentist retired, the one dentist within 100 miles of them. So she comes here to go to the dentist. And it makes me think there was a method to the madness in this. Because all the little rural towns that vote Tory, provincially, they don't have a lot of dentists. So let's have them pouring into Toronto, pouring into the GTA, but they're still giving us only a certain amount of money. And the question I wanted to ask you is, if Warkworth, Ontario gets X number of dollars or whatever their group is, and it doesn't get spent, do those clients carry the money into the region of Peel, or does the money stay there?
Through the chair, at this point in time, the allocations for funding are directed to specific health units. The province, when there are unspent funds such as this, will sometimes redirect them to other locations, but they have not given us any specific details on what they might do in those situations with this program.
So before we put our tap shoes on and start praising the Ford government, the $5.7 million is going to get eaten up by all the rural patients coming into Peel, including my daughter, except she's not a senior and it won't affect her. But I'm saying a lot of the seniors with the slightly tinged blue hair that are coming in from Timbuktu are going to be using up our funds. So while it looked pretty good, we're going from 1.7 on dental care, we're going to 5.7. Wow. No, that's the method to their madness. I knew there had to be a catch. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Very good presentation. Councillor Groves, you're going to move receipt, and it was direction also that you wanted that correspondence through the chair to the province to emphasize the point that you've made. Madam Clerk, a recorded vote or show of hands? So here for receipt, a show of hands. Seconder is Councillor Parrish. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Bringing us down item 8.1, our final staff presentation, utility billing resolution process, a presentation from Steve Banton, Director of Operations Support. Steve, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. With me here this morning is Jim Kosmalski, who's part of my operations leadership team here at the region. I'm here this morning just to take council through as a follow-up to the July 11th council session on how we work with customers to resolve issues associated with high water bills. Historically, council has been abiding by two foundational principles, specifically around utility water bills. First, for customers to pay for what's been used, whether it's intentional or not, and to ensure our policies promote conservation. Now, I'd like to mention a few data points for context purposes before I get into the details around our program. Now, on an annual basis, the region issues approximately 1.3 million utility invoices annually. And out of those 1.3 million invoices, we receive approximately 2,800 complaints from residents and or customers overall for high utility billings. And that 2,800 represents about 0.2% out of that 1.3 million. So as we issue our invoices every quarterly basis, generally they're accepted by our customers. Secondly, customers are generally invoiced on a quarterly basis, and this is reflective of how often we're able to conduct our meter reads. Our meter reads are conducted quarterly, so the invoices take place quarterly as well. Now, with just a little bit more background, on the utility bill, there's a separate charge for water and a separate charge for wastewater. On the water side, given that it's metered, customers are billed for all the water consumption that's been used, again, whether it's intentional or not. On the wastewater side, it's a little bit different. Wastewater is not metered, so a proxy for the wastewater volume is used instead. And that proxy is water consumption, and that's an industry standard. Here at the region, the wastewater proxy that's used is 85% of water. And it's not 100%, or it's not a one-to-one relationship, because not all the water that's used automatically makes its way down to the wastewater system automatically. The two most common reasons are those that have swimming pools that fill them up, and others that have irrigation systems as well. Those are two of the most common reasons why not all the water returns back to the wastewater system automatically. Now that 85% again is a proxy. For some customers, more than 85% of that wastewater makes its way back to the system. For some customers, it's less than 85%. That's why the average 85% is used, because wastewater can't be metered. Thirdly, our meters are always tested to make sure they comply with the specifications outlined in the AWWA. And the AWWA is the American Water Works Association. Now, when we look at our meters are mechanical. Unless water passes through them, consumption cannot be recorded. And they physically can't record more water consumption than the water that's actually passed through it. The meters can't speed up. If anything, over time, they can slow down just based on wear and tear of some of the parts, but they can't speed up. And the analogy I've used with some people in the room here is like your car downstairs in the parking lot right now is probably in park, the odometer's not spinning. The water meter is the exact same thing. So generally, when an invoice is sent out, generally they're correct, regardless of whether the consumption was intended or not. Now, we receive a lot of questions from a variety of customers on different reasons why their utility bills are high. I've listed quite a few here, but the most common one arises from excess usage just from plumbing issues, whether they reside inside the home or outside the home from irrigation systems. Residents also call if they believe their wastewater charge is too high, because they don't believe not as much of that water made its way down to the wastewater system. Again, those with swimming pools and with irrigation systems. Again, since wastewater is not metered, we follow the industry practice of using water consumption as the proxy. And the last reason, in the event of a landlord-tenant relationship, in the event that a tenant isn't making payment towards that high water bill, we'll seek to get those dollars back from the landlord. And it's often the case that the landlord will try to receive some sort of reprieve from making that payment. Now, while the onus of water consumption has traditionally been on the user, there are still several steps we take here at the region to be proactive to minimize the surprise impact to those residents. First, when a meter read takes place, but before the invoice is actually issued, in our system, we have flags that identifies whether a household or business's consumption has gone really high or a lot lower than what's happened in the past. On the high end, if the consumption is about 5 times higher than the average consumption that the household has used, it'll flag. And on an annual basis, there's about 24,000 flags that come up that we investigate before the invoice actually gets issued. And Jim's team here will go through them one by one and make sure that they make sense. One of the things we can do, we can consider lowering that threshold to see if we can get more flags that come about. But in the event that we're not sure out of those 24,000 whether the consumption makes sense, we'll send a verification representative to the customer's home. And at the home, there's a variety of steps that they'll take. They'll actually test the meter again to see if the consumption is still high. If it's still high, we'll knock on the resident's door, and hopefully they'll be home, and hopefully we can conduct a leak audit with the customer there and then. A lot of cases, they're not home. So what we'll do is we'll leave a bright fluorescent orange door tag on their door. It's pretty obvious to see. That says urgent, so hopefully grabs your attention. We think you may have a leak, your water consumption is high. Here are the 5 steps that you can follow that'll help you educate you in terms of how to figure out where that leak is there. And if you have any problems, we're here to help. And we've got our contact information here at the region that we're available day and night to help support the customer in their need. When we get back to the office, we'll call the customer again with the number on file and leave a voicemail if need be. After a couple of days, if we don't hear back from the customer again, that verification representative will go to the house a second time and go through the same process. We'll test the water meter again. We'll knock on the door, hopefully that they're there, and we'll call them back a second time when we get back to the office. Now, in this two-step process, the vast majority of the time, we actually make contact with the customer. Having said that, there are probably a few stragglers that fall between the cracks that we're not able to reach for one reason or another. So a couple additional things that we can try and do going forward. First thing we can do is we can actually add a third phone call, and hopefully we'll get a little bit more lucky and maybe we're able to reach them. The second thing we'll do is to try and use emails as a means of contacting customers. More people are closer to their emails than their voicemails, so we'll use this as well. So hopefully between that third phone call and using emails and other means of getting in touch with customers, hopefully we're able to get those few customers that fall between the cracks out of our existing process today. Over and above that, what we also do is we'll randomly select about 140 meters in the region on an annual basis, and we'll just proactively test them to make sure they meet AWWA specs. On top of that, we'll look at our top 150 to 200 water users in the region, and we'll look at those meters annually as well, just to make sure that they're registering everything properly. Now, the process I took you through right now is what takes place after the meter is read, but before the invoice actually is issued to the customer. Now, when the invoice is actually issued to the customer, we try to work with them as closely as we can to try and rectify it as quickly as possible. So when the customer calls, the first thing that we'll try and do is actually conduct a leak audit over the phone. Best way of doing it and the best way of actually trying to resolve the issue real time. We'll ask them a variety of questions such as teaching them how to use how to look at that leak detection feature on your meter. Not everyone knows that exists. We'll teach them how to learn if you have a plumbing issue with your toilet. We'll ask them questions about the irrigation system. Maybe you have some pooling on your lawn. It's a protocol and a series of questions that we'll work through with the customer on the phone real time in the hopes that we can actually resolve it right there and then. In the event that we can't figure it out over the phone, we'll assign a verification representative to that customer. That representative will call the customer, and we'll make our way to the customer's home when it's convenient for them. And at the home, with the customer side by side, we'll actually conduct a leak audit there and then. And about 98% of the time, we're actually able to find the source of the leak, or we'll find that the leak has actually already been fixed. You'll see dry water stains and some new plumbing right above it, and we can't necessarily prove it, but it just leads one to believe that it's been fixed already. If the customer is still not content, sometimes they'll ask us to actually check the meter, which we'll gladly do. And again, whether the technology is an old meter or a new meter, we're finding that they don't over-register for the reasons I've outlined before. Now, there's also been some questions, especially here at Council in July, about the opportunity or the likelihood of water theft. Now, in the event of ICI or our business customers, if there's a hydrant on the private side of the property line, it's metered, and the customer will be billed for the water that actually gets used. Now, having said that, over the past 30 years, there's only been 3 cases of water theft that have been uncovered here at the region. So while water theft could be a possibility of higher water usage, evidence tells us that it's more unlikely than likely. Now, the average meter that we have in place has a life cycle of about 20 years. On an annual basis, we replace anywhere between 16 and 20,000 meters that hit that 20-year mark. Now, the new meters that we're installing today actually have a radio frequency technology, which allows a customer, and even the region, to actually view close to real-time consumption of someone's water. It also has detections for leaks, for backflow issues, for meter tampering, and a bunch of other things. However, there's a cost to enable that incremental features that these meters have to have. We'll have to invest in 2 types of infrastructure. First, we'll have to invest in approximately 200 data collection devices. When a data collection device, in my own mind, I almost think of them as mini cell phone towers around the region that takes that information from the meter and transmits it back to the region. The second investment that we need to make is in an online portal, which allows the customer to view their consumption real time on whatever device that they want to use. Now, the incremental cost of enabling these features out of the meters, which is not included in the meter cost, would be anywhere between $10 to $15 million, with an ongoing operating cost of anywhere close to $500,000. It is a very sizable investment, but one that we believe that would resolve the majority of those 2,800 inquiries that we receive annually. Now, once the majority of our customers actually have this new technology, if council wishes, we can come back to council and discuss the merits and the drawbacks of making that sizable investment to address the 2,800 inquiries we get annually. Now, right now, within the region, about 140,000 or about 40% of our customers actually have these new meters. If we continue to go along replacing meters, once they get to end of life, it'll be about another 10 years or so by the time everyone actually has these meters. Now, 10 years is a long time. Next year, staff is planning to come to council to review the structure of our utility rates. If council wishes, we can include in that report what it would mean to accelerate that meter changeout program so we can do it quicker than 10 years. At the same time, to have that discussion that I mentioned earlier about whether the $10 to $15 million investment is worthwhile on top of accelerating our meter changeout to address the 2,800 inquiries that we get on an annual basis. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, Regional Council has always adopted the user pay methodology. Since our last council session, we've reached out to 8 neighboring municipalities to understand how their processes of managing utility bills, to see how that compares to what we do here at the region. Now, the way that all the others talk to customers, how they conduct their leak audits, how they do the proactive testing and the like, most of that is pretty well common. It's the same thing across all of them. There's no difference between what we do here at the region and what they do. Where there is one difference is that 5 of the 8 local municipalities actually have a waiver program, but there's some containment around it from preventing it from getting too big. Some of the common things that can only be one time in nature. It needs to be at least 3 to 5 times more than what you paid in the past. You need to prove that you have a leak. You need to prove that you fixed it. There's a fair amount of investment required in a program like this, in infrastructure, processes, people, in order to administer a program like this. Now, I step back and I look at the 2,800 inquiries we get on an annual basis. Most of those are one-time in nature. And the introduction of a waiver program would essentially mean that we would forego about $1 million of revenue that would actually go back to the resident for those waivers. And that $1 million has actually been earmarked to be invested just to maintain the health of our water and wastewater system. Now, in order to recover those dollars, the way we would do that is increase the utility rates from all customers, which again deviates from that user pay methodology. And that increase would be about an extra 0.3% every year. So hypothetically, if I assume that over the next 10 years, the average utility rate would be a 7% increase, with the waiver program, it'd be about 7.3% every year. On top of that, one thing for council to consider as well is that there are many customers today that receive high utility bills that just pay them. And with the introduction of a waiver program, there'll be those that would otherwise pay for their invoice that would now like to seek a waiver. So that $1 million that I quoted before and that 0.3% increase, there's a risk there that that would increase over time as customers became more aware of the existence of a waiver program. That's why staff is recommending to continue what we do today. And what we do today is offer customer flexible payment terms, recognizing that it does create some sort of financial hardship for many families. We'll allow them to pay over a longer period of time, anywhere between 3 months and 12 months. And we have, I believe, over 400 customers that are on some sort of payment program today, which has been successful. Now, to close out generally, we're always looking for opportunities to find ways to improve the experience that our customers have with here at the region. And the things that I'll talk about next, I've actually mentioned throughout the presentation. As I mentioned earlier, we use emails and other means of notifying customers, and we'll add a third attempt on a phone call for those customers that we have difficulty reaching. Hopefully, between those 2 scenarios there, we will be able to get in touch with those few customers that we're not able to get in touch with, just to improve our connection rate. Staff plans to return back to council next year to review the structure of our utility rates. If council wishes, we can look at the option of accelerating the meter changeout program and the incremental costs associated with doing that, as well as the extra $10 to $15 million investment in that radio frequency technology. If council wishes, we can bring that to council as well to see whether that investment of a significant size is worthy of rectifying the 2,800 inquiries that we receive annually today. And that concludes my presentation. Open to questions.
Thank you very much, Steve. It was a very comprehensive report and very timely for the previous delegate that couldn't make it today. It would have been very instructive. But anyway, maybe he'll be here next time. So I have a list of questioners. We're going, sorry? Yeah, okay, was about to say the name. Okay, Councillor Fortini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Just a couple of questions. So when we look at these bills and people come to complain, do we look on a one-on-one basis, or we just say, you know, this, we can get you on a program? And the reason I'm asking, I was over last year. Some guy had the hose on, you know, and he didn't shut off the main, and he went away for the college, and the hose just ran for 2 weeks. He was willing to pay the bill, but he says, it didn't go into waste management, it went in my garden. And we still end up, the poor guy still had to pay the $290 for a waste management. And another one is, well, swimming pools. If it's not going in a waste, why are we charging that if they have a pool?
Right now, through the chair, right now we're not able to meter wastewater. So everything is a proxy. So we don't know by customer how much of that water returns back to the wastewater system. So in some cases, some would be overcharged, some would be undercharged. It's an industry practice that all practice. For anything that we waive from a customer, we'll have to increase the rates that everyone's going to have to pay. So the answer is there is no perfect answer. The answer is that we charge everyone on the average, recognizing some pay more, some pay less. But with the inability of being able to get something accurate using the average is really the industry practice that we all follow.
If we have a swimming pool, and you need a permit to build a pool, and you can see my average bill, let's say an average is $80 a month, and all of a sudden, boom, it jumps to $700. It's common sense to put it all in the pool in those 3 days, since your meters could tell now and it should flag you.
Yep.
Because my swimming pool, I put a new liner last year. It took 3 days with the whole study running. You know, it said you had a water truck. So if the meter flags you, it should actually say, okay, he is filling up the pool. It's not going into waste management in the sewers. So I don't see why we can't help someone for something like that, or
under that scenario, we just to challenge the thought of, if respectfully, then the neighbor beside them that doesn't have a pool, that isn't filling a pool, should probably be paying more than 85% to offset that. So the concern is that there's always going to be valid arguments of those that are under that 85%, and there's just as many of those that have the over 85%. So for those that have swimming pools that want to get billed less than 85%, it's something that we can enable based on council direction, but then we're going to start getting other people to charge more than 85%, and we don't have the business intelligence of knowing who has pools and who has irrigation systems. It just gets into a slippery slope, and we recognize that's not perfect. And I won't sit here and say that it is, but just based on technology that's available today, the average is the only means that we have, and anything that gets waived one end needs to be made up somewhere else.
An irrigation system is very minor.
Yeah.
You know, if you have the right system with the floor and the dampness, it should only come on for 10 minutes, and if it's moist, it shouldn't even come on. That's minor. Even if you have the pool, the puddle pool, that means your line's broken, so it goes through the meter, regardless if it goes on the grass or puddles. The new meters are installed, so I got mine installed. I find the pressure is completely different. So is it different from the older one, more the computer? Because usually at night, let's say the sprinklers come on at 1 o'clock, it hits all the way to the sidewalk. It doesn't hit there no more. I always want to measure the pressure on the hose and see how much PSI. Never got around to it. But even in the morning, like there's not enough pressure no more on these new meters. So I don't know if they're different. They changed mine about 2 months ago.
Yes, through the chair. The new meters are not reducing the pressure at all. The new meters are almost exactly like your old one. There could be a problem with the pressure with your zone. Maybe your zone has dropped some. There could be a lot of variables there, but it's not the meter. We could come and check your meter if you would like, and to see if it's a meter issue, but meters do not reduce the pressure, no.
Okay. So on a pipe, when you have a pressure going from 1 inch to 2 inch, and the other side of the 2 inch is going to be less pressure than the 1 inch.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
So the new meters, I got 1/2 inch pipe. All the new meters are 3/4, so that's where the pressure is being reduced. So you're going from 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch, and then back to 1/2 inch, and I got no more pressure. Why don't the meters come back to 1/2 inch unless you change all the plumbing to the road?
Well, that's the builder, when he built your house or whatever, it came in with a half-inch service. Is that
Right.
what you have, is a half-inch service?
Half-inch, and that's what reduces my pressure.
Right, that's what's reducing your pressure then.
Right.
So,
But
so
you
your meter
said-
that was replaced is a 5/8 meter probably what's on your line.
So what, they could come up with a meter to match the old plumbing, and the pressure won't be reduced.
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe,
I
Councilor
know.
Fortini, that unique circumstance you have is something you'll take offline. With regards to the specific report, any further questions, Councilor Fortini?
That's good.
Thank you very much. Councilor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'll start with the bright orange notices. So I also get bright orange notices, but they're usually for repaving my driveway or new windows, doors, or lawn maintenance. So I'm kind of one of those people that aren't really going to look at it, and I'm gonna, you know where it's gonna go. So I'm thinking that if, I don't know what the stats are with people returning phone calls on those notices, but maybe we make it a little bit more along the lines of this is a region appeal notice, and maybe we can get some more traction if that helps. But of course, using up the rest of those first. 24,000 flags seems like a lot to me. That seems huge. That's a lot of work that you guys are putting in. I understand that, you know, our meters, I think we have a reliable system. We've had, what, maybe 10 delegations over the past term and this last term and this term to come and that have had an issue. I'm okay with kind of the way we're going now. I'm not interested in looking at any type of a program like those other municipalities have. I'm interested in, you had said next year that staff are going to come back with a report on the meters in the 10-year cycle. I'd be interested to see what that looks like as well, because that's, I think that's something that we really have to discuss and see what we're going to go to. I realize that the water theft is so low. I don't remember the councillor that had talked about water theft last time to spur the comment, but from my understanding, it's on a rise. So I don't know, I'm not sure what that looks like going forward. And I guess we just, even though it's low occurrences, you said 3 that we know of, I think we still need to be diligent in looking at some of those. And I just finally wanted to say that every time somebody comes before us to delegate, I think staff is extremely professional in looking into the situation, getting to the bottom of the situation, and essentially coming up with the solution. And if that is, you know, implementing some kind of payment program to give them a little bit more time, I appreciate that staff's willingness to do that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Raz.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation, and thank you for meeting with me, Steve, last week about the plan. And one of my residents who had come before council a couple months ago having similar types of issues that we're discussing today. Having gone through that process, I believe that our current one is a good one to have. I think we look at those outliers on a case-by-case basis, so I'm really glad we've gone through this review. A few questions. Does every other municipality also have a wastewater charge? Or is it, I guess the question is, if you have water and wastewater is a proxy, why would we not just have a water charge?
Through the chair, that's one of the things that we'll look at next year when we come back to council in terms of how we structure our rates. There could be a fixed versus variable. Do we combine them into one, or do we keep them separately? That's part of the analysis that we'll be bringing forth next year. Historically, we kept them separately. But we're open to making that different if there's good logic and valid reason to do so.
Okay. And my other question, and you kind of just answered it, as people are more water aware and they move to conserve, there's still upfront infrastructure costs that we need to manage. So if we're going to be looking at our rate changes, I think when we move to a fixed rate, that addresses our infrastructure needs going forward, and then the variable is the incentive to encourage people to conserve. So if we're going to be looking at a fixed versus variable and a combination of both, I think we should look in that direction and see what perhaps some of the other North American utilities are going. I know we've always done the fixed rate, but I think it's an antiquated way to bill for water.
Yeah, and through the chair, just to want to make sure I'm clear, I'm not suggesting that we're going to go to fixed versus variable. It's just going to be one of the options that we'll look at.
Right.
Whether it's going to be the most appropriate one, the analysis will reveal itself. So I just want to give the impression that that's what we were doing. It's an option that we're definitely going to give a lot of
I think I've mentioned
consideration.
it a few times before at council that
Yeah, I know.
that we should be going down that road, and really it comes down to fairness for the residents, but also for the work that's required to do to put the infrastructure in the ground. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll move the recommendations. Mr.
Thank you
Chair.
very much,
Go for
Councillor Raz.
time.
Councillor
Thank you.
Dillon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the key point is that Councillor Ras had mentioned is fairness, and I'm not sure how fair it is for the taxpayer to absorb the cost of somebody who's had a leak, and but I do understand and I do feel for some of those residents who've had a $2,000 water bill and they're struggling to get by, and so I know we did have a conversation, and so. And I know you'll be, do we need direction, or can you, because I know you were mentioning that you were going to be putting inserts in, educational inserts. Is that something that staff was going to be doing anyways?
It wasn't something that staff was considering, but that's definitely, I think there's value in doing so. So, yeah, next year, one of the things that we contemplated, just for council's context for them, one of the things that we'll look at doing next year is once we issue out our mailing that talks about the increase in utility rates, we can add an insert there that tells people how to detect leaks as a one-page insert as part of that.
Right, and so I'm not sure if you know as well, is any options for our newsletters that we have currently that talk about how you can prevent leaks, or is that something we can do going forward as well?
Definitely, I know each councillor has their own newsletter. We're willing to support in crafting and working with your communications team to include something like that in anyone's newsletters that want to have it included. Absolutely.
Appreciate that. Thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Demirla.
Thank you, Chair, and again, thank you for a very detailed, deep dive into the issue. And I also fall into the camp that I think the status quo is working. Makes no sense to be looking at $1 million, maybe more, given the, on the one side, there's the fairness issue. Why should taxpayers pick up the tab? But there's also the issue, the financial situation we are in. We've got, other issues as well. So I don't think this would be the time to be looking at anything that would look at more money on this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. That's all my speakers, and I have a resolution moved by Councillor Raz, seconded by Councillor Demirla, that the current approach to utility billing issue resolution, including offering flexible payment plan options where appropriate as a means of assisting customers with high utility bills, be continued. You've heard the resolution. I need a recorded vote. All those in favor, do so electronically, please. And that carries. Great presentation, Steve. Once again, thank you. Okay, with that, that deals with all of our delegations. We're on to the committees. First up, Councillor Medeiros, items related to human services.
Thank you. Actually, as the mover, I guess, I believe we have a communication from the City of Brampton. And we moved this at the City of Brampton because we've been hearing and we know that there's been a lot of disappointment and I would say negativity in our downtown, with our downtown businesses, our Brampton, our BIA. They've expressed concern about the increase of criminal activity, addictions issues. So we at the City of Brampton unanimously supported a motion which essentially requested our staff to address some issues, and it also we have requested that staff and Region Appeal look at this. I think this would be appropriate now to maybe hand it over to Janice, and maybe can suggest how we can support this motion here at the Region Appeal.
Commissioner, if you could speak to it, please.
Thank you, and through the chair. As you are aware, the region is doing a lot of work to support individuals with mental health and addiction issues and those who are experiencing homelessness. From upstream investments that benefit the health and security of the community in the longer term to more current-facing programs and services. So for Council's consideration, may I suggest that I work with my colleague, the Health Commissioner, to bring a report back to Council on the various initiatives that we are undertaking on community safety and security and related social challenges, and not just in Brampton, but across Peel.
Very good. You still have the floor. Carry on.
Oh, yeah, and just regarding, I guess, also the request to Public Works, waste management. Again, we've heard from the businesses, the downtown councillors, that there's many issues around it. So I would hope that our waste management folks can look at verifying it, doing some form of inspection, and see where some supports that we can provide, and if a report can come back as well.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm happy to take that as direction to work with the city and the BIA on what we can do.
Great, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Chair, and I support obviously what my colleague Councillor Medeiros has put forward, and thank you for the response. I also just wanted to flag, when the report does come back, some issues that are happening around the periphery of the downtown in Brampton, and specifically along the Etobicoke Creek Trail. There has been more activity, more homelessness activity, etc., along just the surrounding area north of the downtown, as well as immediately south. And if there's any proactive outreach work that we could do, that would be great. I did have to call the non-emergency number for the police to report some unsafe activity, and they flagged it. I spoke with Joy Brown, but it would be great to get some outreach workers there. And then on a final note, when the report comes back, it would be great to know if we're getting an increase in the number of people coming from other jurisdictions into the region of Peel and or the downtown. We've heard from our stakeholders in the downtown area that there are new faces and new people who are perhaps coming from Toronto or other areas across the GTA.
Commissioner Sheehy.
Thank you. If I may just speak to that, and through the chair, I will remind council, especially since there are some newer councillors, that we have a service philosophy at our homeless shelters that no one is turned away. And as a result, we do see individuals and families coming from outside the jurisdiction. We'll be bringing a report forward this fall about our service pathway and how we're trying to change the way in which we help homeless individuals. And that may be a good time to discuss whether or not that is still the philosophy of council.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we need a vote for direction? Okay, so all in favor of direction to our Human Services staff and also to Public Works? All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, and that brings us on to items related to planning and growth management. Chair Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of Council, you have before you the items related to planning and growth management. Item number 11.1 held by Councillor Thompson, Peel 2041 Official Plan Review, Implications of the New Growth Plan 2019 Status Update. Here for information, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I got a couple of questions with staff, if maybe Adrian can help me. The report mentions the potential 9th line lands in Mayfield West Phase 2 in a process to move forward in the advance of the full MCR because the work has already been done. if the province accepts this request for a transition regulation, can you expand a little bit what the process will be and how long this is going to take, or do you have any idea?
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, as you've mentioned, we have requested of the province that they provide transition to allow the settlement expansions for Ninth Line and Mayfield West Phase 2, Stage 2, to move forward in advance of the full MCR that has to be completed by 2022. And we're actually very well positioned to move that forward quite quickly if the province does grant us that transition. We have done all of the technical work, long completed now for both of those settlement expansions. We've held a statutory public meeting in the case of the Ninth Line lands almost a couple of years ago now, and we have council direction to hold a statutory public meeting for Mayfield West Phase 2, Stage 2 as part of the 2017 growth management amendment that was coincidentally stalled as a result of the GTA West. So we can move forward with that very quickly as well. All that work is done. And once we would have the transition language, it would just be a matter of pulling that documentation together, meeting our reporting timelines to get that out and bring that forward to council. So it would be, the approximately the 8-week timeline to do that reporting.
All right. There's one other thing that I guess it's a concern that I have is these population forecasts. Now we got the 2031B and 2041 that got it add on, and now it's got to come with an official plan. So it's just delay. Now, in the report, and we've heard rumors, there's more population forecasts. We have to we're already delayed enough going forward. But how is this going to impact our official plan and even our development charges bylaw that we got coming forward? Is this going to be a problem if this is not acknowledged, or how can we have an addendum if, we have these population, this is what it's going to look like when we're going forward with the studies, so we're not doing duplication, because we can't afford delays. Is there anything that you can add or give us some comfort of where we're going on this?
So through you, Mr. Chairman, there's a couple of things to think about. In part, it depends on how quickly. You're right, we have heard rumors, as noted in the report, and indications from the province that they're considering updating the population and employment forecast for all of Ontario, including the GTA, and flowing that down through the growth plan forecasts that the ones municipalities are required to plan to. So depending on the timing of that, it would affect us differently in terms of how we would implement it through our programs. The development charges process is well underway to update our development charges bylaw, and that has to be completed by the fall of next year. So that would be more difficult for us to make any significant changes to that. That's being done based on the current 2041 forecast that we have. However, through that process, we could do some sensitivity analysis and what have you, depending on the timing of anything that did come from the province. And we're very well positioned to be able to do that through the direction of council. The growth management work that we've been implementing over the last few years has involved looking at various scenarios, understanding the implications of that on our infrastructure, on our finances. So we do have some background to be able to respond and at least do some sensitivity analysis through that development charges bylaw update. For the official plan, the timelines are a little bit longer. We're working towards completing our official plan municipal comprehensive review in accordance with the provincial deadline. So that would be around the end of 2021 when we'll be making our recommendations to council. So there's a bigger opportunity to incorporate that as we go. And as indicated in the report, and as we've committed to council through that process, regardless of the provincial direction on a single municipal comprehensive review timeline or what have you, we certainly do plan on continuing to bring forward our policy directions, our conclusions, our findings and studies as that work is completed, so that council can be aware of that direction, provide your input and provide direction to us for consultation. So that can be worked into that process a little more effectively, depending on the timing of when the province releases updated population and employment forecasts.
Do you have any idea when that could be?
Not really, no. Other than, as I say, we are hearing strong indications that the province is looking at it. One would expect it would take a few months anyway for them to come forward with something.
And speaking, reading through the report, I take you've been speaking with all the lower tier municipalities as well about that issue?
Yeah, it's fairly fresh, but through our engagement forums that we have on planning and growth management, the municipal working groups, we've certainly been talking about it, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parrish.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised to hear that because we had a little kerfuffle yesterday at Mississauga wondering why Ninth Line lands and Mayfield West Phase 2 were lumped in the same report because they're at different stages. Could you explain that to me?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, they do have different statuses, for sure. In terms of the regional OP process, they're both, and from the provincial policy framework perspective, there are some similarities as well, though, and that's why they're referenced in this report. Those similarities are that both involve settlement expansion boundary changes to the regional official plan, and so they're covered by that process that's outlined by the province. But in the case of Ninth Line, though, it's more an administrative matter now. The Ninth Line lands are unique in that they have a history that goes back to Halton before they were annexed, and so they're able to proceed on that basis. But to clean up our official plan and properly apply, the Region of Peel land use planning framework to the Ninth Line lands, we'd really like to get that cleaned up. But it's not affecting the
okay, and the
moving
Ninth Line lands are using old established numbers. They aren't part of this.
That is another difference. Even though they are a settlement expansion and captured by that, they are the Ninth Line lands are moving forward on the basis of the existing 2031 population allocations in our official plan, whereas the Mayfield West lands do require something above our current 2031 official plan numbers.
I'm not a planner, but I would suggest that should have been two separate reports because it did cause a bit of consternation amongst the Mississauga councillors. Secondly, to address the elephant in the room, in 4 weeks, we're going to find out if Mississauga can separate or not. So that we're quite confident because the city is accepting the plans from Ninth Line and they're processing them. We're also cautioned that anything that we do to address these so-called new numbers that are coming in could affect the numbers that Mississauga gets, and we're doing quite a bit of growth in Lakeview and other locations. So we've been cautioned by our staff to cool it for 4 weeks until we find out what's going on before we make any commitments to new allocations. So I'm just suggesting to everybody that this great secret thing that's coming in camera, we're kind of armed and ready that we don't want to do anything for 4 weeks. We want to just keep everything cool. Now, and we're also understanding that Ninth Line, as Sue will say, is well on its way. It's had its public meetings, it's done, the numbers are old, it's an old report, and it should go ahead without tying it to Mayfield West. So we're being very cautious, just letting you know.
Thank you. Councillor Sinclair.
Thank you. I wish to just bookmark a couple of issues that are important up in Caledon on this. And we're talking about employment planning under the growth plan. And it talks about the development of sensitive land uses near major industry or polluting in its land uses. And I'm finding this protection for major industry highly biased because the whole thrust of it is to protect those interests. And we're having a problem up in Caledon. It was just recently announced to Mayor up there with me and have a St. Mary's cement idea of looking for a 400-acre quarry immediately adjacent to the hamlet of Cataract. Well, that's a pre-existing land use, pre-existing sensitive land use. And here are these people sitting there saying, well, we're going to start, our base is within 100 feet of the houses. we want to start blasting and crushing and creating gravel. So I think we need to work on a reverse onus there where we need robust social impact studies to protect existing sensitive land uses. The other one is under the settlement area boundaries definitions, and they talk about allowing adjustments that are not a rural settlement or in the greenbelt area, and that concerns me. We have a significant study underway for comprehensive rehabilitation of the gravel pit complex south of Caledon Village, and it is at this point 3.5 miles long and up to 1.5 miles wide of devastation. So what we're looking is brand new land uses going in there in the future. But it looks to me as if we may need amendments or a let on the Greenbelt Plan policies, the growth plan policies, the provincial policy statement, and the Aggregate Resources Act to make this happen, because all of those might end up being equal to a new settlement within there. So we need to do some work on that, and so we're not end up doing a set of complex studies that have no basis in provincial plans. So I just bookmark those as unique for Caledon. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. I don't think there's any disagreement around this table in what you had just said. Can I get a show of hands for receipt of the information report? Carries. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and that brings us down to Enterprise Program and Services. Councillor Fonseca.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair, I believe that you held item 13.1, the 2020 Regional Council and Committee meetings.
Yes, thank you. Just a thought, as is my wont, I look at the annual calendar a year in advance, and I just look at little quirks and things that maybe make the facilitation of our work a little bit easier. And there's some funny pockets in any calendar year that make our work a little bit harder. And that week in September, before or after Labor Day, is always a funny one. And some of us attend our Thursday meetings, but some maybe don't have the opportunity, and we're a little short for quorum sometimes. And I don't want to get Councillor Parrish started on some other times of the year when we're a little short of quorum sometimes. But one that jumped out at me for 2020 is it's an unusual September where Labor Day falls on the latest day it possibly can, but we would otherwise have the possibility of committee meetings the Thursday before. And that jumped out at me, and I said to the clerk, I don't know that we should be holding that for regional business. Quite rightly, we said, well, we'll just hold it in abeyance. And what I'm saying is, why don't we just take it off the list entirely? Because I really don't want to set myself up to fail. And why don't we agree that under the circumstances where it's a very unusual September, everybody enjoy your holidays, and not that you're not working every day anyway, kids back to school, and let's get back at it after Labor Day as we normally would, and not even hold it in abeyance. If I have to call an emergency meeting, I will, but why set ourselves up to fail? So my request of my colleagues is, can we agree for that Thursday before Labor Day in September? Can we remove it entirely for regional business, unless at the call of the chair there is an emergency of some kind, which I can do anyway? That was my suggestion to my colleagues. If someone wanted to move that and second that, or however the clerk.
Okay, thank you,
yes.
Mr. Chair. We have Councilor Medeiros on the board.
Thank you, through the chair. I also recall previously that during the March break period, because I know March break, you know, it's 1 week at some school boards, It's another week at another one. So I was wondering if council would consider, I guess, the week before as well, extending it to sort of that 2-week period. So that would be...
We've always done that.
We have done that in the past.
So that seemed a regular practice. So for your consideration, I would... yeah, go ahead.
Clerk Catherine would like to respond to that.
We did used to have a 2-week March break when the school boards had different March breaks, but we've coordinated with the school boards. They only have 1 week March break now. So both boards in Peel have the same week of March break.
Some schools have 2 weeks.
Private schools.
I think we're hearing that some have extended with PD days in front of, and or, so that's something to consider.
Would it be the week before or
It
the
would
week
be,
after?
I would suggest the week before.
Week before?
Is it the week after? Okay.
Perhaps Councillor Medeiros, you could check.
Yeah, well,
Okay, we'll put that on hold for a second. Councillor Rass is also on the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just suggest, there's only 2 committee meetings that, the day on the 25th. It's Committee of Revision, which I don't think affects any of us. The other one is Waste Management, as long as they have quorum for that. So let's just continue business as usual. I would make a suggestion on September 10th. It's just reserved for regional business. It'll be 10 weeks before we have a regional council meeting. Can we make that a regional council day?
So September 10th, it would be following Labor Day. Yes, which is what you were suggesting, correct?
Well, the week before was just an R. The 10th is just an R. The next council day is on the 24th.
So
So
have
I'm
council
suggesting have
on the
council
10th.
on the 10th. And the 24th. So like our every 2 weeks. Got business to do, people.
Yes. So on the 10th and the 24th, we would have council.
Yes,
Correct.
that's my suggestion. Okay. So
Okay.
moved. Thanks.
And remove anything on the week before because of when Labor Day falls. Okay. And what dates were we looking at for March break? Extending the week after, which is currently? Just leave it as is? Okay. Leave it as is. Okay, anything, I don't see any questions further on the board. This is a recorded vote. It has to be approved, so I need someone to move the motion. Moved by Councillor Grove, seconded by Councillor Rass, and it's a recorded vote. And thank you very much, and that's back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. There are no items related to Public Works. That brings me to items related to Health. Chair Downey.
Thank you. Through you, Chair and members of Council. Item 17.1, Meals on Wheels for Seniors, related to 18.7 correspondence. Sorry, where is it? From Kathy Granger, Acting Commissioner, held by Councillor Innes. Thank you, Councillor Downey. So I'd held this because this has a significant impact. I know that we had spoken with staff and we had asked them to identify gaps in the funding and where we need to realign some of our budget costs, especially with the pressures coming down from the province. But this is some of our most vulnerable residents, and we do have a priority to make sure that at the end of the day, our seniors can stay in their homes as long as possible and stay healthy, because it does create a lesser burden on the tax base into the future. So while I appreciate the good work that staff did, I did want to put forward an alternative motion. Basically, identifying the fact that, yes, we do have to close that gap, but make it so that there is an opportunity for there not to be a dramatic increase where we're going to lose this service, and also give an opportunity for members around this table and those organizations to actually work to find other funding alternatives to make sure that they are continually to be sustainable into the future. So I do have yep, if you want to put it up. Thank you. And speakers to the motion, Mayor Thompson.
Yeah, it's going to even be hard enough. I know when you read the report, it was a significantly higher. And when you got people on fixed income, and a lot of times it's because this is desperately needed. Even 3% is a big enough hit as it is. I know it definitely doesn't hit where the report wants to go. But this is our most vulnerable, I think, as Councillor Innes did say. And we're constantly saying that we're all trying to get people to age in place. We're trying to take care of the seniors, and especially on fixed income, and then all of a sudden we had them whack-a-mole, that's unacceptable. So I do know the reason why I agreed to a 3%. I know it's a bit of a hit, but where there hasn't been incremental increases over the past. So it's kind of, it needs to catch up. I get that. But I think even with 3%, and that's even over a lot of budget increases that we try to aim for, this is something we need to do, and we're just going to have to ask staff to go back and find that. But also through the report, I find it very difficult to do any more than that, because as far as I'm concerned, I would like to see the hard numbers on how we got there. But I think for this point, I think we need to send back direction that, okay, so let's do this to see where we get caught up. But I think Councillor Ennis and Brown's motion here explains significantly where we need to go. And at the end of the day, this is a wonderful service that helps a lot of people in need, and especially for seniors that are on fixed income. So to me, it's a little higher than I want to be, but I know this is the most that I'm comfortable supporting on this motion.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. Councillor Groves?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I concur with both speakers on the points made by both of them. And I support the motion in front of us. I used to deliver Meals on Wheels. For 9 years, I delivered meals. And I will tell you, it's not just the cost of meals, but it's all the other things that happens with those seniors and the visits that they have. Sometimes the volunteers that deliver meals are the only ones they see for the day. And so while it's important to keep them fed, it's also it's the social aspect of the visits that they get from the folks who are delivering those meals. So, you know, not everything is dollars and cents. I mean, at the end of the day, it does come down to money, but at the end of the day, we also have to look at the benefits. And it's not always the cost of providing a program. It's the benefits of the program. And I can tell you this is a great program for these seniors. We talked earlier about dental care and the need for providing funding so that seniors receive proper dental care, because if they don't have proper dental care, what I said earlier, it leads to other health issues. If they're not fed properly and eating healthy, then it's going to lead to some other health issues as well. And at the end of the day, the cost becomes much greater than the investment. So we need to invest. I feel it's important in the health of our seniors, of everyone. I think Mayor Thompson just said most people are on fixed income, and I think that's what we talked about as well with the dental program, is the fixed income. They can't afford it. So I thank you, staff, for the great work that you've done. But unfortunately, I think that we have to consider the overall impact this is going to have on our seniors. And so I'm happy to support Councillor Innes and Brown's motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parrish.
Yeah, I too will support it. We pay a lot of attention to young kids. I do fundraising for the food banks to provide milk for kids because they have those big sad eyes and you feel sorry for them. But seniors are kind of locked in and alone a lot of the time. And I think the idea of Meals on Wheels also checks on the health of those people. You could have somebody who's had a heart attack or something else. So I support it 100%. And by the way, we've probably freaked out our staff over the last couple of months about tightening budgets and making sure we don't waste money. So their report to us is reasonable in what we would expect, and it's up to us every once in a while to overrule them for the right reasons.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Thanks very much. I have a meeting later on this afternoon with Meals on Wheels in Streetsville. I think it's the head office. And I'm going to ask them about, they don't want to be part of a regional program because I'm going down to deliver money that didn't come from here. So somehow or other, I kind of doubt they don't want some help. But I mean, I don't know the history. So maybe if I could look like I'm real smart when I show up there in 3 hours, and hopefully, but maybe you could give us just a little bit of history why.
Commissioner Granger.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we did do a pilot project with Mississauga Meals on Wheels. It didn't work. The clients weren't happy with our meals, actually. They wanted more restaurant-type meals, which we can't provide through our long-term care. So it was the type of meals we were providing. And we did make some adaptations. And it was also the distance that we were coming from Meals on Wheels. They found it a little bit more onerous. So they've chosen to partner with a different nonprofit agency to provide meals.
Okay, well, I may just take the liberty of asking a couple questions because it sounds like a little disconnect of some sort, and I have no problem supporting the program. I think it's great, and in fact, that's why we're showing up there today to help them out, but I hope that they're availing themselves of all whatever's available.
Okay, we're happy to have further conversations.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Thank you. So the motion before you, moved by Councillor Innes, seconded by Councillor Brown. Recorded vote. Do I need? That carries. And we'll move receipt of the report. So, moved by Councillor Grove, seconded by Councillor Fonseca. All in favor? Carries. Item 17.2, creating and supporting healthy schools and high-impact, easy approach, leading to healthier youth pledge programs. This is for information only.
Okay, that was
but it
dealt
moved-
with under
it
the
moved with the presentation.
Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downey. That brings us down to other business, item 19. Is there any other business before the chair? Seeing none. Item 20, notice of motion. The first I have is 20.1, deliberations during 2020 Regional Council budget meeting for inclusion of community youth hubs, Century Gardens Lawn Bowling Clubhouse, and Fletcher's Sportsplex, City of Brampton, as requested by Councillor Medeiros, who I will acknowledge first.
Thank you, Chair. Members of Council, we put this forward, I think in inspiration with the great leadership that Councillor Parrish has shown in Malton, and we identified areas of need. But based on some of the questions that we had during our consideration of the proposed youth hub in Malton, this motion reflects us working with staff in the City of Brampton, putting forth a strong business case for our consideration during budget deliberations. So I'd hope that you would support this motion to allow for us to consider it during our 2020 budget deliberations. Oh, is the... Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just to echo what Councillor Medeiros had said, the location that was identified by staff is a high-risk area and a priority neighborhood, if we would call it. In addition to that, there is an existing facility that is located on both of those particular properties, the satellite as well as Century Gardens, which would have the full-on youth hub. There is vacant building, and so in terms of renovations, in terms of the need, it's definitely there and consistent with the model of the Malton Youth Hub as well. So hopefully our fellow colleagues and councillors will support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Parrish.
As much as I'm tempted to annoy Gurpreet and fight with him over this, I'm not going to. I would hope when it does go to budget that you talk about what Brampton's going to put in. I remember Mississauga put in $3 million in ours. I also know that ours was deferred for a year so that we have received zero from the region on it, but it's a commitment. So I am happy to support this. The more hubs we get in the right locations, the more we can save kids from going down the wrong path. So I support this 100% despite Councillor Dillon.
No. Everybody wins. With that, Madam Clerk, is that direction to staff to be considered in the budget? You want it as a formal motion for receipt and referral to staff for our upcoming budget deliberations. You've heard the motion. I need a recorded vote. As moved by the way, Councillor Medeiros and seconded by Councillor Santos. And that carries. Thank you. Next is item 20.2. This is a motion put forward by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Dillon, and I'm going to need them to explain the motion itself so that I can deal with it, because it's just come forward and I need 2/3. And so, Madam Clerk, do you have it written out, or should I just perhaps, Mayor Brown, why don't you speak to the motion you'd like us to deal with? Just to explain it, then I hope I can get 2/3 to open the matter and deal with it, and we will go from there, sir.
It may be easier to put the motion on the
very good.
screen, but just to say, in November, it's Groninek's 550th anniversary, and as part of that celebration, PAMA has an art exhibit that the community requested, but there is a charge with that exhibit. I think it's a very insignificant charge. I think it's only a few $1,000s, but we just want to make this as accessible as possible, so to waive that charge. It's the art exhibit. Oh, I think it's $2,500 or something.
I'm told $2,500 to $2,800. Thank you. So first of all, I need a motion to deal with the matter. I hope I would get 2/3 just so we can discuss and deliberate it. Do you need a recorded vote? So please, if you could first just push your buttons. I need a 2/3 to deal with the matter, and then we will deal with it accordingly. So all those in favor of dealing with it, please press yes, and I hope we get our 2/3.
And just if, well, what's it done?
Councillor Paleshi, if you wished to vote. Okay, I have consent to deal with it. Mayor Brown, as the mover of the motion, please speak to your motion.
And just to say, we had a meeting that the chair was involved in, and thank you for your advocacy. We had requested about a year ago that we try to have more of get a greater utilization of PAMA from cultural communities in the region of Peel. And there was frustration from the group that was organizing the Sikh Heritage Month that they were having real difficulties having an exhibit and utilization of PAMA. We think we had a meeting with the user groups and with PAMA, and is now working quite well. But we just want to make sure that we're making that even easier. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Demirla.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. I'm generally supportive of it, but I'm curious, has PAMA waived fees in the past? Is this just something that's quite routine?
Yes, and I can confirm I've asked that question as well, and it has happened a handful of times in the past. Councillor Rass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say, in Mississauga, I have probably the bulk of the museums in my ward, and for a lot of these types of special events, we have third-party sponsors, so I would encourage the movers and the seconders of the motion to look for external parties to help cover those costs through a sponsorship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Raz, and I agree with that sentiment entirely. However, if I could say, this is a rather unique circumstance, knowing some of the history on the file. The Councillor Dillon and Mayor Brown were helpful enough to deal with me, and after a couple of meetings in my office, in previous go-rounds with this event, there have been some fits and starts and some issues along the way. What I love is the symbolism of us saying, no, we want to sponsor it, we want to be your partners, and I think it sends a very positive message to the cultural community. So in other instances, I'd say, let me help you go find $2,800. But here, I think the idea of the region of Peel stepping up with PAMA to say, we're your partners and we've been working very well with this community, the symbolism, I think, is very, very important. By the way, as someone who has a Nanak Street in my own ward, and it's quite a fitting tribute, I think, as well. So I think the region of Peel is right to step up in this instance, having done it before and given the background to reach back out to this community and keep moving forward with very, very good relations. Councillor Dillon.
No, I think you just pretty much said everything I was going to say. Just for the worldwide Sikh community, the 550th birth anniversary is something that's really, really big. It's actually brought two pretty big enemies together, Pakistan and India, to build a corridor that they have there. And so, there's 200,000 Sikhs, I believe, about 150, 200,000 in Brampton. And, I'm sure we could have got $2,500, but it's a really good gesture on behalf of this council if this does go through.
Thank you. Councillor Paleshi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm fine with supporting this. I think going forward, taking into account what Councillor Raz has said, that's something that we can look at. But I'd also request that maybe PAMA put out some donation boxes and just request some donations to see what they can do there. Thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Great discussion. I have now come to the end of my list. You have the motion before you as moved by Mayor Brown, seconded by Councillor Dillon. I need a recorded vote, please. Very proud to see it unanimously supported. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. That brings us to bylaws. A motion by Councillor Kovac, seconded by Councillor Fonseca, that the bylaws listed on the September 26, 2019 Regional Council agenda, being bylaw 56, 2019, be given the required number of readings, taken as read, signed by the regional chair and the clerk, and the corporate seal be affixed thereto. All those in favor? That is carried. And that leads to in-camera. It is 12:25. I think I've run out of track for the morning session. We have 11 in-camera items. If I could have everybody back for 1 o'clock, please. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're ready to get started with the in-camera. So I remind everyone we are in camera, so only if you have reason to be here.
We have to move in camera.
So I need a motion first to formally move in camera, moved by Councillors Mahoney and McFadden. All those in favor? That is carried. So with that, if there's anyone who otherwise is not required to be in camera, I've got to ask you to make your way. And everyone was in favor of moving out of camera. Thank you, Councillor Sinclair. Right. There's a reason we keep you two old ones around. The only ones that know what really goes on. Yeah. Okay, I have a motion coming out of the in-camera, moved by Councillor Vincente, seconded by Councillor Starr. And this relates to all of the foregoing, so I'll try to go more slowly than normal, and I hope you're all listening intently. That the September 12th, 2019 Regional Council Closed Session Report be received. And further, that the recommendations contained within the confidential reports relating to items 22.2, 22.5, 22.6, 22.8, and 2211 listed on the September 26, 2019 Regional Council agenda be approved and become public upon adoption. And further, that the directions given in camera to staff related to item 22.3 on the September 26, 2019 Regional Council agenda be approved and voted upon in accordance with the Section 239B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. And further, that the directions given in camera to staff related to item 22.9 on September 26, 2019 Regional Council agenda be approved and voted upon in accordance with Section 239B of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. And finally, and further, that the in-camera reports listed as items 22.4, 22.7, and 2210 on the September 26, 2019 Regional agenda be received. You've heard the motion. Madam Clerk, a recorded vote? Please vote electronically accordingly. Yeah, there's a few missing. Are we close, Madam Clerk? That carries. Thank you. Next, Madam Clerk. I have a motion before me moved by Councillor Carlson, second by Councillor Dasco, that the bylaws relating to the in-camera items 22.5 and 22.6, being bylaws 52, 2019 and 55, 2019 inclusive, be given the required numbers of reading, taken as read, signed by the regional chair and regional clerk, and the corporate seal be affixed thereto. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? That is carried. Next, moved by Councillor Dillon and seconded by Councillor Downey, that the bylaw 57, 2019, to confirm the proceedings of Regional Council at its meeting held September 26, 2019, and to authorize the execution of documents in accordance with the Region Appeal bylaws relating thereto, be given the required number of readings, taken as read, signed by the regional chair and the regional clerk, and the corporate seal be affixed thereto. All those in favor? That is carried. And that the September 26, as moved by Councillor Medeiros and Councillor McFadden, that the September 26, 2019 Regional Council meeting be adjourned. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you all. Good day's work. There you go.